Chapter 178. I'll kill his meta-beast as well. Li Zongjio added. At first, Yi Chao was worried that the meta-beast would go into a revenge mode if he didn't kill the beast tamer well. It would only let go if the beast tamer was killed because the beast tamer was stained with its master's blood. That was why the beast tamer was not to be trifled with. If he wanted to kill this beast tamer and get rid of any future troubles, he would have to kill all of these meta-beasts. Kid, you're really terrifying. These people want to fish in troubled waters, but they won't succeed. You guys better be prepared. The people from the Northern Medicine Alliance are here to cause trouble. Yi Chao said in a deep voice. The next time they come, it won't be so simple. There's no need for that. I'll find a messenger to deliver the badge to them. Li Zongjio called over a Li family guard and gave him the 1,000 beasts sex token. Yes, young master. Don't worry. I won't let them go easily. I'll write a letter. Father, send someone to deliver it to the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. Hearing about the Fog Snow Alchemy sect, Yi Chao couldn't help but glance at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio was indeed a disciple of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. Could it be that Li Zongjio had some powerful friends in the Fog Snow Alchemy sect? All right. Li Tianqing nodded, but he still had to go back and write the letter. After handing over some things, Li Tianqing and Li Zongjio left with their people. They had been back for so long, but they still hadn't gone back to check on the family. They didn't know what kind of losses they had suffered. Currently, there were no reports of casualties. After all, they had made preparations in advance. The beast tamer's attack wasn't sudden. Since Li Tianqing knew about the operation a few days in advance, the Li family must have made preparations. However, no one expected that these people would dare to attack in such a way. Clean up the wolf corpses outside. The meat of these beasts is good for strengthening the muscles and bones. Let's have a good meal tonight, Yi Chao said to his general. The Luoxia city was neither big nor small, and there were a total of 3,000 guards. Of course, if these 4 city gates were divided equally, it wouldn't be much. The armed forces of Guanxi town had at least 700 to 800 people, not to mention the larger Luoxia city. The main purpose of having a team of 3,000 people was to deal with attacks from meta-beasts or bandits. 3,000 people weren't considered a lot in such situations. In a normal grade 3 city, the number of guards would start from 20,000. As for the specifics, it still depended on the situation. This quota also required an application process. If it was a city with a high safety factor, 5,000 people would be enough. Not far away, Lai also appeared. He had heard everything Li Zongjio said. Since Sunset City can't tolerate me, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Last night, Lai's words were directly refuted by Yi Chao, and he was even scolded. If he continued to shamelessly stay here, it would be meaningless. Hence, he might as well leave. In Lai's opinion, Li Zongjio's conspiracy to deal with the Northern Medicine Alliance was tantamount to walking into a trap. He was digging his own grave. If he reported this information, he might be able to receive a handsome reward. Most importantly, he would be able to rely on a big tree like the Northern Medicine Alliance. Lai was tired of staying in such a small place. Lai, have great ambitions, but I'm here waiting for death with an old man like you. Leaving will definitely be a loss for Sunset City. Lai, will repay the humiliation I suffered today tenfold. And that damn Li family. That stinking brat, when have I, Lai, been treated like this? I'll definitely cripple you. Lai left in anger. Everything in Luoxia City would be subjected to Lai's vengeance. Li Zongjio returned to the Li family. The outer perimeter wall had been directly destroyed. The pavement on the street was more or less trampled beyond recognition. There were also many bloodstains on the road. Some wild beasts would kill each other. There were all kinds of situations. The shocking scratches on the ground were extremely terrifying in the eyes of ordinary people. The means of this beast tamer is really terrifying. Li Tianqing saw this scene along the way and he was extremely shocked. Fortunately, Li Zongjio had already killed that person. Otherwise, if this happened again, Sunset City would be dragged to its death one day. At that time, the Li family would cease to exist. Why are there scorch marks all around? Li Tianqing and Li Zhongjio looked around. Li Tianqing curiously asked. The grass on the ground had very obvious scorch marks. Moreover, it seemed that the strength of the flames was not low. He's the one who attacked. Li Zhongjio glanced at it and knew that it must be Wang Jing's doing. Family head Zhongjio, you're here. When Li Guo and the others rushed back to the Li family, Li Yun knew that the reinforcements had come. Fortunately, Master Wang Jing is here this time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to stop these wild beasts. Li Yun said, It's him. Even Li Tianqing was surprised. After all, Wang Jing's appearance was not good, and he was young. Most importantly, he loved to eat. How could such a fat body have so many skills? However, Wang Jing's alchemy skills had won over the people of the Li family's alchemy hall. They were very obedient to Wang Jing's wisdom. They cultivated as they should, and even used some strange methods to cultivate. Who would have thought that the person who saved the Li family this time would be Wang Jing? Where is he? Li Zhongjio could not help but ask. Wang Jing did not disappoint him. However, according to his character, he should have escaped long ago. According to Li Zhongjio's understanding of Wang Jing. But now, it seemed that Wang Jing had some feelings for the Li family. Otherwise, with this guy's temperament, he would have fled at the slightest sign of danger. He's severely exhausted and fainted. He's now recuperating in the quiet moon pavilion. Li Yun said, Then let him sleep first. Li Zhongjio went to the study and wrote a letter. He asked someone to deliver it to the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. Then, he asked someone to bring some herbs from the storeroom. The person did not say anything. After all, it was Li Zhongjio who asked for these herbs. Moreover, Li Zhongjio's position in the Li family was very important, so his words carried a lot of weight. However, these herbs were all poisonous. It made people wonder what the young master wanted them for. Earth Fire Pavilion. Li Zhongjio came here again. However, Li Zhongjio did not come here to absorb the power of the earth fire. Instead, he came here to temper his golden body. Given my current state, it will be difficult for me to kill my way into the Northern Medicine Alliance. I have to improve as soon as possible. It would be best if I could reach the Origin General Realm. Li Zhongjio thought to himself. It was still unknown whether there was an Origin Ancestor Realm expert in the Northern Medicine Alliance. Therefore, he had to be fully prepared. Even if they were to face a Sky Origin Ancestor level powerhouse, they would still need to be prepared to kill him. The longevity of the Li family was not just a matter of words. It had to be achieved with blood and swords. Heartbreak grass, heart-splitting orchid, burning soul flower. These are all highly poisonous things. Even an Origin Ancestor Realm expert would die instantly if they came into contact with them. The blood poison bat's Yuan crystal also possesses a potent poison effect. If you combine them together, you will be able to refine a true poison pill. A pitch-black origin crystal appeared in Li Zhongjio's hand. It was possible to identify the blood poison bat's spiritual body in this origin crystal. Open the furnace and gather the fire. Chapter 179. Guanxi Town. After the previous bustling scene, Guanxi Town had regained its peace. The deaths of a few people didn't affect Guanxi Town much. The businesses that were left empty were quickly replaced by others. Naturally, some of the posts that were missing were replaced by others. Guanxi Town continued to operate without any disturbances. However, the position of the guard was still vacant for the time being. No one in Guanxi Town dared to act recklessly. After all, the Shen family was still here. Who was behind the Shen family? The Zheng family of Cerulean Wave Giant City. It would be better for them to behave themselves in the future. Otherwise, they would suffer a terrible fate. I heard that the new guard has some bad omen. I don't know if it's true, but he hasn't woken up yet. Yeah, what you said might be true. But please don't bring any disaster to our Guanxi Town. I was wondering why there was a change in the guard. This position is not easy to sit in. There were countless rumors in the streets. Some said that the new guard was possessed, some said that he was killed, and some said that he was indulging in debauchery all day and died in the belly of a woman. Meanwhile, in the Shen family, everyone was standing outside the bamboo forest clinic. The old man was weak, so he took a rattan chair and sat down. It had been a day and a night. Was the girl that Li Zongjio had invited back good enough? Some people were already doubting her. However, Shen Xinxiao was determined to prevent anyone from stepping into the clinic. After all, the girl was young and did not seem to be very capable. However, Shen Xinxiao trusted his son and Li Zongjio. He would never be careless in this kind of matter. Therefore, everyone persevered and waited. It was close to dawn. From the time this young lady went in and Li Zongjio left, it had been 1 day and 1 night and 1 day. At dawn, the surroundings were quiet. There were already quite a few people who couldn't hold on any longer and fell asleep at the side. The guards of the Shen family had to stay close to them. Shen Xinxiao, who was lying on the table drowsily, opened his eyes when he heard that. He got up and saw Nansheng walking out. Pharmacist Nansheng, what's the situation? Shen Xinxiao immediately stepped forward and said excitedly. Some of the Shen brothers and Shen Nanxiao's wife also woke up and looked nervously at Nansheng, who was carrying a medicine box. Nansheng first scanned his surroundings before he gently furrowed his brows. It was as if he was extremely dissatisfied with the fact that someone was not waiting here. It's fine. You guys deal with this blood poison bug yourselves. He'll wake up tomorrow at noon. Nansheng said. The Shen family also invited an alchemist to investigate the room. He discovered that Shen Nanxiao had already regained his color and aura. However, his body was still a little weak. Beside the table, there was a bottle of potion hanging upside down. The potion, along with a needle, pierced into Shen Nanxiao's wrist. At this rate, it would all be gone by noon the next day. This was the first time this old apothecary had seen such a treatment method. It was breathtaking. Amazing, it's really amazing. When Shen Chunqiu and the others heard that Shen Nanxiao's condition had improved and that he was no longer in danger, they were all excited and happy. Thank you very much, miss. How much is the consultation fee this time? The Shen family will definitely give it all to you. Shen Chunqiu hurriedly said. With such a thing happening to his son, how could he eat or sleep? I'm not taking any money. Where did the kid who brought me here go? Nansheng walked around for a long time but did not see Li Zongjio. That damn kid couldn't have run away, right? Hearing that he was not taking any money, Shen Chunqiu was stunned. Who would not take money to see a doctor? However, when he heard the second half of Nansheng's sentence, he came to a realization. So it was because of his little grandson's charisma. He was really something. Why didn't he bring such a powerful alchemist here? It's like this, Nansheng. I'm Zongjio's mother. After Zongjio brought you here, he left because he had some urgent matters to attend to. This is the letter he asked me to pass to you. As he spoke, Shen Xinxiao passed the letter that he had been holding to his chest to Nansheng. Letter? Nansheng took the letter from Shen Xinxiao's hand. She opened it and glanced at it before keeping it. Men are indeed unreliable. I want to see how you're going to give me this in half a year's time. This was what Nansheng muttered in her heart. Although she did not receive any consultation fee this time, Nansheng's goal was never to make money. If she wanted to make money, with Nansheng's standard, she would be treated as a guest of honor in any large city. Why would she go to the Blackwater Forest to treat people for free? Furthermore, this money was of no use to her. Since the treatment is over, I'll take my leave. If there's anything else, you can find me at the Blackwater Forest Clinic. Nansheng summoned the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow. These days, the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow had eaten all kinds of delicacies in the Shen family. After all, the Shen family hunted for a living and the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow loved to eat all kinds of fresh meat. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? You should at least stay for a meal. It's almost time for breakfast, Shen Xinxiao said. However, the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow's body had already soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from the sky and could no longer be seen. Shen Xinxiao was extremely surprised by Nansheng's hurried arrival. It was as if he was a chivalrous doctor in the underworld. There was really such a free and easy person in the world. If Zongjio is together with this girl in the future, I don't know if he can take care of her. However, from what I saw just now, there shouldn't be a problem. Shen Xinxiao thought in his heart. However, no matter what, Shen Nanxiao's illness had been cured. This was the best outcome. Northern Medicine City. On the southeast street of the city, there was a 7-story fragrant medicine tower. This was a medicine tower. It was the land of the Northern Medicine Alliance. The first floor was where elixirs were sold. The second floor was the VIP reception room where the elixir refining plan could be customized. The specific price could be discussed slowly. The third and fourth floors were where the alchemists refined elixirs. The fifth floor was the conference room of the Northern Medicine Alliance. The sixth floor was where the Alliance Master of the Northern Medicine Alliance lived. The seventh floor was where the past Alliance Masters were enshrined. In other words, the memorial tablets of those who had contributed to the Northern Medicine Alliance. This was the entire place. At this moment, in front of the memorial tablets on the 7th floor, a figure stood. This person was dressed luxuriously and his eyes were like heavy pearls. In his hand, there was a token. Su Feng, don't worry. If I don't take revenge, Fu Chunlei, will be struck by lightning. After saying that, Fu Chunlei placed the 1,000 Beasts Sex Deacon token in front of the memorial tablet. Is there someone from Luo Xia City who came to surrender? Fu Chunlei stood with his hands behind his back, as if he was asking the air. A person in black clothes with red edges walked out from the darkness. He wore a pointed bamboo hat and looked like a fisherman catching fish. Alliance Master, it's the advisor of the City Lord Mansion. His name is Ying Lai and he claims to have brought important information. Bring him to the 6th floor. I want to question him personally. Chapter 180. Ying Lai stood in the middle of the hall. It was said that the Alliance Master of the Northern Medicine Alliance wanted to meet him personally. Ying Lai could not help but feel nervous. He had to perform well. If he caught the Alliance Master's eye, he might be able to achieve meteoric success. However, the surrounding atmosphere was a little strange for Ying Lai. This was because there seemed to be something soaking in some of the bottles and jars around him. Ying Lai was familiar with this brewing method. Some people liked to drink medicinal wine, which was brewed in this way. However, Ying Lai looked at the jars and found that they did not contain snakes, insects, rats, or ants. They looked more like parts of a human body. Ying Lai felt his hair stand on end when he thought of this. Are you Ying Lai? A cold voice sounded from behind Ying Lai. Ying Lai immediately turned around and bowed to the person who came. Ying Lai greets the Alliance Master. Before he came, he had already inquired about the situation. The current Alliance leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance was under Fu Chunlei's control. With the help of his brother, Su Feng, Fu Chunlei had obtained the position of Alliance leader. Before this, Fu Chunlei was just an ordinary elder. It was as if he suddenly had great power and support. Not only did he take over the position of the leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance, but he also negotiated with the powers behind the Northern Medicine Alliance. If the Alliance Master of the Northern Medicine Alliance wanted to gain a foothold, he must have the support of other powers. At times like this, tactics were extremely important. Otherwise, it was very likely that these forces would choose to cooperate with other alchemist alliances. During this period of time, there would be mutual benefits. There would be no eternal enemies and no eternal friends. Between them, there was even less of a subordinate relationship. From the fact that Fu Chunlei had the ability to persuade the various powers behind the Northern Medicine Alliance, it was obvious that Fu Chunlei had extraordinary abilities. Otherwise, these rich people wouldn't have let Fu Chunlei off so easily. You have some eyesight. Fu Chunlei snorted coldly. He then sat in his seat and placed the 1,000 Beasts Sex token on the table. You better give me a proper explanation about my brother. How did Su Feng die? Ying Lai felt as if a pair of sharp claws were hanging on his neck. If he made the slightest mistake, this pair of claws would snap his neck without hesitation. This terrifying aura of life and death was like a bone-chilling wind to Ying Lai. The gap between the two of them seemed to be a little too big. However, this Fu Chunlei was merely an alliance master. Why would he have such a feeling? Alliance leader, Lord Su Feng, was killed by the young master of the Li family, Li Zhongjio. Li Zhongjio? Was it that kid who was still in his teens? Do you think I'm a fool? Fu Chunlei suddenly slammed his palm on the table, his anger rising. Yinglai also felt his legs go soft, and he immediately knelt on the ground. Please calm down, Alliance Leader. I'm not lying. Li Zongjio possesses a secret technique. He was only a Yuan master, yet he was able to kill a Yuan general powerhouse. Yinglai's eyes were cold as he spoke. Although he did not know exactly what was strange about Li Zongjio, he knew that Li Zongjio had to have some sort of secret. Otherwise, how could an ordinary person do such a thing? This was simply impossible. Not only that, but the Northern Medicine Alliance's Deputy Alliance Master, Shang Quan, and Protector Jin Yohu were all killed by this young man. It's absolutely true. Before I arrived, I overheard Li Zongjio writing a letter to the Foggy Snow Alchemy sect. He was preparing to gather people to attack the Northern Medicine Alliance. Without waiting for Fu Chunlei to interrogate him, Yinglai spilled the beans and told Fu Chunlei everything that had happened. Join forces with the Foggy Snow Alchemy sect? Fu Chunlei frowned. No wonder Li Zongjio was so bold. The Foggy Snow Alchemy sect lived in seclusion on the Foggy Snow Mountain. It was almost isolated from the outside world. Outsiders did not know how strong it was, but it was only recorded in the official records of the dynasty. It was just a third-rate sect. Moreover, it was at the bottom of a third-rate sect. Such strength was not enough for Fu Chunlei to fear. However, Fu Chunlei was very interested in Li Zongjio. Is this the news you brought? Fu Chunlei looked at Yinglai below and said indifferently. He was like a high and mighty king looking down on his slave. Yinglai did not dare to raise his head. Instead, he lowered his body even more. Very well, go and receive your reward. Fu Chunlei said. Yinglai's face immediately revealed a look of ecstasy when he heard this. Thank you. Thank you, Alliance Leader. Seeing Yinglai's submissive attitude, Fu Chunlei sat in his seat and felt very comfortable. This was the benefit of power, which was why he, Fu Chunlei, did not care about the price and wanted to sit in this position. I didn't expect that the first person to provoke me would be a small family in this unrated city. This is simply an insult to me. However, since this Fog Snow Alchemy sect wants to interfere and take some benefits, then don't blame me for cutting off your hand. Fu Chunlei's eyes were cold. Inform the Iron Leg sect and the Cold Light sect. Let them be prepared. A figure walked out of the empty room and bowed to Fu Chunlei with his hands clasped together. Yes, Alliance Leader. Since you're here, then let me properly entertain you. Fu Chunlei naturally wanted to teach them a lesson when someone came to provoke them. At the same time, he wanted to seek justice for Su Feng's death. And this justice was the heads of the entire Li family. Only in this way could he give his brothers an explanation. At this moment, in the sky above the Li family in Sunset City, several white cranes flew down from the sky. When they saw these white cranes descending from the sky, the people of the Li family were shocked. Patriarch Li, how have you been? Lin Song landed from the white crane. Behind Li Tianqing were the elders of the Li family, as well as Gu Xuanwu. So it's Peak Master Lin. When Li Tianqing saw Lin Song coming, his face was immediately filled with excitement. He never thought that Li Zongjio's casual letter would actually invite Lin Song over. Behind Lin Song, there were 3 old men. From the looks of it, their auras were quite extraordinary. Come, let me introduce you. This is Elder Qin Lai, this is Elder Wutong, and this is Elder Jin Shui. Li Tianqing listened to Lin Song's introduction. They were all elders of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. 3 of them came at once. How could this be? To be able to become an elder of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect, their strength was basically at the general realm. Didn't this mean that the sect had 4 general realm experts? When did Li Zongjio become so capable? Even Li Tianqing never thought that Li Zongjio would have such strength. Li Tianqing greets the elders. Li Tianqing hurriedly clasped his hands, but these seemingly cold elders waved their hands. Patriarch Li, there's no need to be so polite. If you need anything in the future, just send someone to instruct us. The scenery of Sunset City is quite good. We'll have to come here a few more times in the future. Qin Lai stepped forward and said. Elder Jin Shui and Elder Wutong were both elders of the Blazing Peak. They were also brought here by Qin Lai this time. Li Zongjio was now extremely famous in the fog snow alchemy sect. Who could possibly escape from the nine-headed fatal octopus? Only Li Zongjio could do it. That's right, Elder Qinlai is absolutely right. These elders were also flattering each other about Luoxia City. This scene of people fawning over Luoxia City was simply a little shocking to Li Tianqing. It was even a little subversive. Who would have thought that these elders would be so enthusiastic? It was completely unlike the legendary cold and unapproachable level. By the way, Zongjio is still cultivating in seclusion. We're not sure when he'll come out, Li Tianqing said. It's fine, we have nothing to do. We'll disturb you here for a few days. It's the Li family's honor. Chapter 181. Li Family, Earth Fire Pavilion. Li Zongjio withdrew his yuan power, and the temperature of the cauldron in front of him gradually dropped. Then, Li Zongjio took out the item from the cauldron. It was a pitch-black elixir. The elixir itself emitted a dark and cold aura. Even if one came into contact with the elixir, they would probably be corroded and devoured by the terrifying aura of the elixir. If one ate such a highly toxic elixir, even a Sky Origin Ancestor Realm expert would find it difficult to resist such a terrifying poison. Fortunately, I added a little vanilla before I took it out of the cauldron. Otherwise, the smell would definitely be very unpleasant. Li Zongjio thought to himself. Although the elixir was refined by him, and the degree of cleanliness was absolutely reassuring, it was a poisonous elixir that was condensed from poison. It had not undergone any special refinement, so it would emit a foul smell. When the foul smell hit, it would make one's stomach churn. It also made people feel nauseous. How could they still think of eating it? Only a fool would eat it. Therefore, Li Zongjio added some vanilla to adjust the smell. The effect of this elixir, in addition to the attribute enhancement brought about by the White Dragon Origin Spirit, I wonder if this body can withstand it. Li Zongjio thought to himself. The White Dragon Origin Spirit could increase one's mental strength. At the same time, when consuming the elixir and refining the herbs, it could absorb 200% of the energy. It was equivalent to Li Zongjio eating one elixir, which meant that others would have to eat two. This was the effect of the elixir. On the other hand, the effect of the poison was the same. Even Li Zongjio was somewhat fearful and uncertain in his heart. After all, he was taking the initiative to test the poison, and under the circumstances that his strength was not that strong, he could only hope that his body could withstand it. Come on. He circulated the ancient golden tyrant body art. Li Zongjio opened his mouth and swallowed the highly toxic elixir. The moment he swallowed it, Li Zongjio felt that the elixir had turned into a liquid knife and directly cut his body from his throat. The terrifying corrosiveness that was constantly devouring his body. Li Zongjio's body was almost instantly eroded. Oh no, the poison is too strong. Li Zongjio had never expected that he would spit out a mouthful of blood not long after swallowing it. Pfft. The blood had already turned pitch black. The poison was too strong, almost causing the ancient golden tyrant body art to be unable to keep up. Blood bead. Li Zongjio immediately grabbed a handful of blood beads and stuffed them into his mouth. As the blood bead entered his body, Li Zongjio's essence blood, essence qi, and spirit became even more exuberant. At this moment, they suddenly erupted. Boom! As the power of the blood bead spread throughout his body, Li Zongjio's ancient golden tyrant body art continued to operate and directly stabilized his body's strength. The poison was constantly destroying his body, and the ancient golden tyrant body art was also constantly repairing itself. During this repairing process, it was also helping Li Zongjio to constantly increase his strength. I finally endured it. Although only a few seconds had passed, Li Zongjio had already walked through the gates of hell. The terrifying poison was spreading in his body, and if he was not careful, it was very likely that his body would be directly corroded. At that time, not even his skin would be left. What else was there to cultivate? Fortunately, even though Li Zongjio's yuan power did not increase during the refining process, he could clearly feel a change in the strength of his physical body. Like a piece of diamond, the impurities within were removed, leaving behind the toughest and purest part. The golden tyrant body art. The golden dragon rune on the yuan bead within his body lit up, and the golden dragon original spirit appeared around his body. In the process of raising his cultivation base, Li Zongjio had also gained some insights. Immediately, his mind moved. The power of the golden dragon original spirit immediately poured into his right hand. But in the end, all of it was poured into a single finger. Li Zongjio felt the power of this finger. This finger was enough to penetrate the body of an ancestor origin expert, break his defense, and directly kill him. This is the legendary golden finger. Li Zongjio could not help but think. When he performed this move, his right index finger had already turned completely golden. This finger could be said to be the transformation of the power of the golden dragon original spirit. However, this finger could also be said to be indestructible. At the same time, it was also indestructible. If someone wanted to arm wrestle, they would not be able to move this finger. This move shall be called the golden dragon finger. Li Zongjio thought that this would become one of his killing moves. At the very least, among all the skills that Li Zongjio had learned, there was almost no one who could instantly kill an ancestor origin expert. Moreover, this was under the condition that his cultivation was only at grade 7. This golden dragon finger could. It could easily kill an ancestor origin expert. However, Li Zongjio had to be able to perform this move effectively. If he encountered an enemy who also performed the same move, he might have already been turned into powder by the time this move touched his opponent. Therefore, the move still depended on how it was performed. Of course, if the gap was too big, it would not be easy to make up for it. It only took an hour to refine the poison pill. This was because if he couldn't refine the poison within an hour, he would be poisoned to death. There was no doubt about it. Then, Li Zongjio recovered for a while. Only then did he get up. When he stood up, the bones in his body also emitted a crackling sound, as if he had been reborn. This caused Li Zongjio to be extremely amazed. The effect of this ancient golden body art is really overbearing. Li Zongjio came out of seclusion because he had heard that Lin Song had arrived. In addition, Qin Lai and the others had also come, which surprised Li Zongjio. After all, Li Zongjio had only said in the letter that he wanted to find a few people to go with him to the Northern Medicine Alliance. However, he had not expected that Lin Song would directly invite the great elder, Qin Lai. Qin Lai's strength was also extremely tyrannical. To be able to become the great elder, his own strength had to be very strong. Since you're all here, I'll thank you first. Since you're already here, there's no going back. If you run away because of fear, you'll be my, Li Zongjio's, enemy. Li Zongjio said to Qin Lai and the others, and his words were not polite. Li Tianqing's eyes widened when he heard this. These elders of the Fog Snow Pill sect, how could they accept such a threat? Was Li Zongjio too arrogant? However, looking at the expressions of Qin Lai and the others, they did not seem to be dissatisfied. Protector Li, don't worry. Since we're here, we'll naturally endure until the end. Li Tianqing looked at Li Zongjio with a frown. Zongjio, what are you going to do? Don't worry, father. I'm going to reason with them. Li Zongjio said with a smile. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle still stayed in the Li family. Since the last time, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle had learned to be smart. Although its injuries had not fully healed, its combat strength was very impressive. It could easily resist some ordinary invaders. A skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. Moreover, the camel was not dead yet. The group of people also rode on the white crane and headed towards the northern medicine city. Li Tianqing's heart was also on tenterhooks. He didn't know what kind of trouble Li Zongjio would cause this time. However, Li Tianqing did not have time to idle. Soon, a report came from the Flying Cloud City. Patriarch, there's a new situation at the Huangyuan Ore. Chapter 182. With the speed of the white crane, it would only take a day and a half to reach northern medicine city. It was not an exaggeration to say that they could travel 1,000 miles in a day. However, Li Zongjio and the others did not directly enter northern medicine city on the white crane. They were here to cause trouble for the Northern Medicine Alliance, not northern medicine city. They still had to abide by the rules of the city. If it was similar to the small city from before, they could still be a little arrogant. However, Northern Medicine City was already a mature third-class city. Similar to Flying Cloud City, although it also had the same configuration as the Merchant Alliance, because the facilities in all aspects were not complete, and even some of the equipment did not reach the standard, it only slightly passed the standard of a third-grade city. It was only slightly better than Luoxia City. If a Merchant Alliance appeared in Luoxia City, its strength and status would be the same as Flying Cloud City. The standards are not clear, but as one of them, you are naturally aware of the difference. If you want to numb yourself to ignore these differences, you will only be deceiving yourself. The real difference was there, never disappearing or changing. For example, Giant Emerald Wave City and Qingzhou City were both second-class cities. However, Giant Emerald Wave City's strength was 10 times that of Qingzhou City. There were even some that only existed in name, and some had even become ghost cities. There were countless such cases, and there were all kinds of situations. Northern Medicine City in front of them was considered to be above average among the third-class cities. In Dingquan Province, there were many third-class cities that could surpass Northern Medicine City. The reason why Northern Medicine City was famous was because there were countless medicinal gardens in Northern Medicine City. This was because the land was once watered by the blood of high-level meta beasts, leaving behind a large amount of meta chi. Therefore, the soil here was more suitable for growing some spiritual herbs. The quality of these spiritual herbs was also better. Almost every household could become a reserve for medicinal herbs and had most of the medicinal herbs. The largest medicinal herb merchant in Dingquan Province had also set up a branch here. Thousand Flavor Herb Hall. It was a branch of the Medicinal Herb Merchant Alliance. In Thousand Flavor Herb Hall, you could find the medicinal herbs you needed as long as you had enough money. A young man arrived in front of the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had worked with Thousand Flavors Herb Hall many times. After all, they were both from Dingquan Province, so he had helped them a few times. They could be considered as fellow countrymen in the entire Xingyan dynasty. However, the potential of the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall was limited. No matter how high it was, it could not reach. In the end, it could only become the giant of herbs in Dingquan Province. Even so, it was enough for them to occupy this place. Welcome to the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall. Here is a guide list for herbs. If you have any questions, you can ask me at any time. A female attendant who was in charge of introducing the herbs said softly. His attire was that of an alchemist, but there was also a badge on his chest with the words, "Apprentice," written on it. He was an apprentice pharmacist. This Thousand Flavors Herb Hall was the largest herb shop in Dingquan Province. Even if one could work here, one would be able to come into contact with all kinds of herbs. It was a good place for a pharmacist to learn. As for whether or not one could learn effectively, that would depend on oneself. This kind of thing could never be blamed on the environment. Do you have any grade 4 herbs? Li Zongjio had obtained the Heavenly Veins 7 stars from the Fog Snow Valley. He was worried that he did not have any supplementary herbs to refine the Heavenly Veins elixir. Now that he was in the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall, of course, he would take a good look around. Grade 4 herbs. The apprentice pharmacist was shocked when he heard this. He stared at Li Zongjio with his eyes wide open. He was just a young man of 16 or 17 years old. The old man behind him looked like a wise man. Grade 4 herbs were enough to refine a Grade 4 elixir. They belonged to the level of ancestor origin experts. Could it be that the young man in front of him, or the old man, had the ability to refine a Grade 4 elixir? In the entire Northern Medicine City, there were only 3 Grade 3 alchemists. One of them was the manager of the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall. The second was the chief alchemist of the City Lord Mansion of Northern Medicine City. He was also the first guest of the City Lord Mansion. The third person was the only alchemist alliance in the city. He used to be the leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance. However, it was said that some time ago, the leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance had passed away. The new leader seemed to only be an advanced Grade 2 alchemist. It seemed that it was not so easy to break through the realm of a Grade 3 alchemist. Grade 4 herbs were difficult to refine even for a Grade 3 alchemist. In the Thousand Flavors herb hall, there were only a few treasures of the shop. As for the value of these herbs, they were worth more than 10 million yuan. Therefore, the woman was also sizing up Li Zongjio. First, she was curious who Li Zongjio was. Second, she wanted to see if Li Zongjio had the ability to refine elixirs. Grade 4 herbs? Yes, you can look at the last page directly. However, they are all treasures of the shop, the apprentice pharmacist said. Today was the young girl's first day of work, so she maintained her enthusiasm. However, the young girl didn't expect to meet such a big customer on her first day. Could it be that the atmosphere in the Thousand Flavors herb hall was like this? However, this young lady also maintained her rationality. As an apprentice alchemist, she also needed to know that one could not judge a book by its cover. Usually, there were some powerful alchemists who usually dressed like a beggar and did not care about their appearance. At the same time, one would not be able to tell from their appearance that they had the ability to refine elixirs. The young woman had seen with her own eyes that a person who liked to pick up scrap metal on the street to sell at the old goods market could easily refine a grade 2 elixir. Collecting scrap metal was just a hobby. There were really all kinds of people. Therefore, when Li Zongjio asked, she answered very seriously. Li Zongjio turned to the last page. There were at most 3 types. I want this 1,000-year ice-toad nonsense grass. Li Zongjio pointed at the guidebook in his hand and said, Please wait a moment. I will go and ask the chief. The chief here should be similar to a supervisor. It was what they called it internally. There was no problem with it. After all, no one would care about it. Li Zongjio did not leave and just stood there. The young woman skipped away. Behind him, Lin Song stood there like a loyal butler. It was currently noon. According to Li Zongjio, there was no rush to take revenge. First, eat a good meal. Only after eating would they have the strength to kill. Qin Lai and the others were preparing in a restaurant. Li Zongjio happened to see the Thousand Flavors herb hall's shop below and came in to see if there were any herbs. It just so happened that Li Zongjio needed this ice-toad nonsense grass. The price shown on the book was 17.66 million gold coins. This number was not something an ordinary person could afford. That Luoxia cities by clan only earned a few million yuan from the handling fees and so on throughout the year. This herb was enough to crush the entire Bai family. The Bai family had to sell all of their shops and land in order to raise so much money. Soon, the chief of the Thousand Flavors herb hall walked over. She was a mature woman in her 30s. Her figure was graceful and her almond-shaped eyes were full of love. When she saw Li Zongjio and Lin Song, she knew that the two of them were not good-looking. However, the aura they exuded was extremely unique. Customers who did not discuss the price and directly placed an order did exist. However, they were usually only found in second-grade or first-grade cities. She had been here for a long time and was unfamiliar with the two people in front of her. She could not remember their names. Looking at them, she guessed that they were from some big family. Young master, I am the chief of the Thousand Flavors herb hall, Lu Manxian. This ice-toad nonsense grass is stored in our ice storage. If you need it, you can pay the bill first and wait for an hour to get it. Lu Manxian came in front of Li Zongjio and said to Li Zongjio. From the way the two of them stood, Li Zongjio was obviously the master. Li Zongjio nodded. However, he did not take out his wallet. Lu Manxian also looked at Li Zongjio. The two of them were in a deadlock for a while. Lin Song stood firmly in place. Li Zongjio waited for a while and could not help but turn his head to look at Lin Song. Why are you looking at me? How can I have so much money? Lin Song was stunned when Li Zongjio looked at him. Chapter 183. Lin Song felt wronged. He was just a peak master of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. Moreover, he had been trapped here for half a year. Although he had a lot of gold coins, he couldn't just casually take out 10 million gold coins. Did he think he was running a bank? It was possible to open a bank, but if it was some sect, how could they have so much money in their hands? The scene was extremely awkward. As a peak master, you can't even take out 10 million gold coins. Li Zongjio also cast a disdainful look at him. However, when it came to money, Li Zongjio didn't have much in his storage ring. Take out whatever you have. In the end, Lin Song also took out his entire fortune. It was a total of 200,000 gold coins. Li Zongjio rummaged through his pockets, and in the end he only found 3,000 gold coins. Li Zongjio didn't know when the money came into his pocket. Lu Manxian and the apprentice looked at each other. Who exactly were these two people in front of him? Were they here to show off? However, they didn't get angry. After all, they didn't say they didn't have money. Wait a moment, Li Zongjio said. Then he looked at the high-end restaurant behind him and waved his hand. At this moment, Qin Lai and the others were about to order food. When they saw Li Zongjio waving his hand, it seemed that something was wrong. Protector Li seems to have some trouble. Let's go down and take a look, Qin Lai said. The three of them walked into the 1,000 Flavors Herb Hall. Li Zongjio opened his palm. Hand over all the money you have on you. Qin Lai and the other two were also confused. What? In the end, the three of them searched their pockets. Elder Jinshui was even more ruthless. He directly took out a stack of gold notes from his shoes. However, the total wealth of the three elders of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect was only 1,600,000 gold coins. On average, each of them didn't even have 600,000 gold coins. How can the first elder of the Fierce Peak be as poor as you? Li Zongjio held the 1,000,000 gold coins in his hand and immediately scolded the four old men in front of him. One by one, they scolded him. They couldn't be relied on at such a critical moment. The four of them only had so little money. Was it that difficult to earn money? Qin Lai and the others were also extremely wronged. They were usually active in the sect. After all, they did not need to spend money on the things in the sect. After all, they were not on a mission to earn money. Usually, the expenses of the sect were managed by specialized personnel. Most of the time, they spent on cultivation. Their meals were all taken care of by the sect. To be able to have so much money, they were all left over from scrimping and saving. Cough cough. Do you still want this medicinal ingredient? Lu Manxian said. Although these people were embarrassingly poor, it could be seen that they were not weak at all. Everyone's aura was faintly discernible and powerful. A Yuan general-level powerhouse. There were actually 4 Yuan general-level powerhouses beside this young man. From the looks of it, they seemed to hold this young man in high esteem. It wasn't because they were oppressed by Li Zongjio's aura, but because they were subdued by his aura. Who knew what kind of charm this little Li Zongjio had? Can I write a note? Qin Lai asked coldly. Who do you think you are to write a note for something worth more than 10 million gold coins? Lu Manxian couldn't refute him directly. She looked at Qin Lai apologetically. Her expression was already an answer. Here's a total of 1,700,000 gold coins. Take it as a deposit. I'll give you the rest tomorrow. Li Zongjio pushed the money on the table over. He had no other choice now. Since he couldn't find so much money on himself, the Northern Medicine Alliance should have the same amount of money. Since the Northern Medicine Alliance was about to be destroyed, there was nothing to be afraid of. Of course, Lu Manxian said with a smile. She had the trainee girl put the money into the basket, and she wrote a receipt for it. This is the deposit. No need. Get it ready tomorrow. I'll take it when I see the money. Li Zongjio stood up and said calmly. Then he turned around and walked out. Lin Song and the others followed closely behind. After Li Zongjio and the others left, Lu Manchuan's eyes lit up. The female trainee also looked at Lu Manxian hesitantly, her eyes filled with doubt. Chief, do you think they can afford it tomorrow? They only had one night. Even if they used some special method, they wouldn't be able to raise the remaining 10 million gold coins. The 1 million gold coins in their hands wasn't even enough to make up for the difference. I'm not sure. Our 1,000 Taste Herb Hall is only in charge of buying and selling medicinal herbs. We don't need to care about other things. If they can't afford it, we'll just take the deposit. Lu Manxian was a proper businesswoman. Since you said it was a deposit, you can't afford it. She couldn't be blamed. When doing business, one had to pay attention to principles. They walked out of the 1,000 Taste Herb Hall. Li Zongjio said, let's go eat. But we don't have any more money. Qin Lai and the others looked a little embarrassed. They were here to support Li Zongjio. They didn't know that they had to spend money. Moreover, they had worked hard to save that money. They had to admit that these people were really too poor. If they had eaten in the original restaurant, it wouldn't have cost more than a few thousand gold coins. But now, they were so poor that they couldn't afford any gold coins. All of it had been plundered by Li Zongjio. I still have 6 silver coins. Let's eat noodles. Li Zongjio touched his pocket. In the situation just now, Li Zongjio couldn't take out the silver coins. Finally, the 5 of them came to a noodle stall. Each of them ordered a bowl of noodles. They spent 5 silver coins and got an extra silver coin. Li Zongjio also bought a stack of salted vegetables. Qin Lai and the others never thought that they would end up like this. They had to eat noodles from a small stall here. If they were in Luoxia City, they could go to any family. Not to mention how much money they would receive, at least the food would be indispensable. In the end, it was indeed a little embarrassing to end up like this. Hey, you don't say. The noodles are quite delicious. The salted vegetables taste good too. Give me some too. When night fell, a cold wind blew from the sky to the ground. In front of a noodle stall. The 5 of them stood side by side and looked up at the tall loft in front of them. Boss, is this the Northern Medicine House? The people of the Northern Medicine Alliance are all here? Li Zongjio asked. Yes, this is the famous Northern Medicine House of our Northern Medicine City. It's imposing, right? But now it's closed and not open to the public. You have to line up at 7 tomorrow morning. The owner of the noodle stall said. Then he looked at Li Zongjio and the others. A kid brought 4 old men to eat noodles at a noodle stall. Did they want to enter the Northern Medicine House to buy elixirs? But I still advise you not to line up. It's a waste of time. The elixirs inside are very expensive. Any one of them is enough to keep my stall open for 10 years. The old man said. It could be heard that the owner of the noodle stall was very sincere in persuading Li Zongjio and the others. He didn't have the slightest malice. Let's go. Li Zongjio directly led the 4 people to the Northern Medicine House. As soon as they got close to the Northern Medicine House, they saw 6 guards in blue clothes with long sabers at their waists. They reached out and blocked their way. It's closed now. No one is allowed to enter. Li Zongjio didn't stop. Seeing that Li Zongjio dared to ignore them, the 6 guards immediately snorted and drew out their sabers. The sound of the sabers was sonorous. However, before they could make a move, they felt a few tyrannical forces locking the 6 of them. Bang, bang, bang. The 6 people were directly sent flying with a wave of his hand. They fell on the road and landed right in front of the noodle stall. The boss, who was below, jumped in fright. Boom! There was a loud noise. The 5 feet tall bronze door of the Northern Medicine House that was tightly closed was torn apart in an instant. Chapter 184. This loud sound alarmed countless people. Some of the houses around the Northern Medicine Tower poked their heads out to see what had gone wrong. There was actually such a loud sound. By the time they saw it, they had already discovered that a pile of dust had risen from the top of the Northern Medicine Tower. The door had already been shattered into pieces. There was actually someone who dared to kill their way into the Northern Medicine Tower. Could it be that these people didn't know that the experts of the 2 sects were gathered here in the Northern Medicine Tower? Iron Leg Sect, Cold Light Sect. These 2 sects were both sects in the city. Not all sects placed their addresses on this mountain. Some sects' cultivation methods were focused on drawing in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Therefore, this address was set up deep in the mountains and forests. However, in reality, there were a portion of sects that couldn't afford to buy a house, couldn't afford to buy such a large area of land, couldn't afford to pay the rent, so they simply placed their sects in the mountains and forests. This way, they could also use the name of training their disciples, because in the wilderness, there would often be yuan beasts coming to visit them. However, in this city, at the very least, before this city was destroyed, you would definitely not be harmed in any way. Moreover, if the sect was in this city, it would be more convenient for many things, such as in terms of publicity. Thinking about it, if a sect was deep in the mountains and forests, if they wanted to rely on their reputation, Who knew how much time it would take and how many peak experts they would need to achieve such a status? Let people be familiar with it. However, in this sect, if they were in this city, then they could casually do some publicity and cause a little bit of trouble. It would be enough to let most of the people in the city know about you. Of course, there were also drawbacks. After all, this way, the competition would be great. Sometimes, this conflict would even be very obvious. This was the Iron Leg sect and the Cold Light sect. In this area, they were also extremely famous. The sect master of the Iron Leg sect was known as the Scorching Sun Leg. The sect master of the Cold Light sect had a set of grade 3 origin skill, the Cold Light Sword technique. As long as he had such a consummate skill, he would be able to make a living in this city. This was a very normal thing. These two sects were also loyal friends of the Northern Medicine Alliance. The armed forces of the Northern Medicine Alliance were limited. Most of the people who came were alchemists. Otherwise, the Northern Medicine Alliance would have become the Yuan-Shur Alliance. Only those who were qualified could enter. Correspondingly, he would need some sects to protect him. Li Zongjio and the other 4 walked in. The house had been cleaned and emptied. Even the windows were locked by heavy steel locks. Clearly, the other party had been prepared for this. Boom, boom. The torches on the walls were instantly lit. The luminous pearls on the ceiling, the surrounding stone pillars, and the back of the counter also inadvertently revealed a trace of killing intent. Tap tap tap. A few figures appeared on the stairs ahead. The leader limped down the stairs with an iron leg and stood in the center. Staring at Li Zongjio, the corners of his mouth curved into a sinister smile. His unkempt appearance made him look like a beggar from the countryside. How could such a person appear on such an occasion? However, it was this man with an iron leg who had kicked 13 opponents to death in the sacred martial arena of the Northern Medicine City. Finally, he stood on the arena and announced the establishment of the Iron Leg sect. His self-created peak grade 2 origin skill, Vajra Destruction Leg, had unparalleled power. This person was the leader of the Iron Leg sect, Guang Chunyuan. A group of country rats who can't even afford a meal want to cause trouble in the Northern Medicine Alliance. It seems that they really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Guang Chunyuan said coldly. Although Qin Lai and the others looked angry, they were also a little embarrassed. After all, they really couldn't afford a meal just now. Obviously, their movements were constantly monitored after entering the Northern Medicine City. What? You sent a cripple? Can you stand firm? Qin Lai had a fiery temper and directly retorted when he saw the situation. These words directly made Guang Chunyuan's expression turn sluggish. As the saying goes, people are most afraid of what they don't have. As a cripple, he naturally hated being called a cripple the most. Therefore, as long as someone dared to call him a cripple, he would use his crippled leg to show him what a cripple really was. Let's see how tough your mouth can be when death is at hand. Kill them. With a loud boom, a heavy stone that weighed millions of tons fell behind Li Zongjio and the others, blocking the entrance. Li Zongjio couldn't help but turn around to take a look at the huge commotion. Then he looked over. "I'll leave this place to you 2 elders," said Li Zongjio. The 2 elders, Jin Shuai and Wu Tong, nodded. Looking at these people, it seems that they have forgotten the name of the Fog Snow Pill sect. Just go ahead. Elder Wu Tong rolled up his sleeves, revealing a series of iron rings under his wrist. Light flowed from the iron rings. Don't even think about leaving." Guang Chunyuan coldly snorted, then leaped towards Li Zongjio. "Your opponent is me." Elder Wu Tong's arms suddenly shook. A strong air wave immediately formed in the surroundings, blocking Guang Chunyuan's path. His fist shook, and a water spout was blasted out. Guang Chunyuan also turned around and kicked towards Elder Wu Tong. Boom! The collision and shock formed a terrifying aura. At the same time, from the surrounding dark corners, members of the Iron Leg sect rushed out to kill. These people all cultivated leg techniques and did not carry any weapons. Elder Jin Shuai circulated his own origin energy, and a sharp metal sword was unsheathed from his hand. Boom! A fierce battle suddenly broke out on the ground floor. Li Zongjio, Lin Song, and Qin Lai walked up the stairs together. The elders of the Iron Leg sect immediately wanted to stop Li Zongjio. However, the aura of a 6th grade origin general burst out. In an instant, these people were sent flying. Li Zongjio and Lin Song both went up to the 2nd floor. Behind them came the sound of vibrations. Qin Lai flipped his hand a few times and sent the elders of the Iron Leg sect flying. Then he quickly caught up with Li Zongjio's footsteps. The two were not at the same level. The elders of the Iron Leg sect were only at the 1st or 2nd grade origin general level. The sect master, Guang Chunyuan, was also slightly stronger. He had the cultivation of a 4th grade origin general. However, he was firmly suppressed by Elder Wu Tong. The elders of the Fog Snow Pill sect often encountered a bottleneck in their cultivation, or when they wanted to comprehend some origin art or origin skill. They would directly go deep into the mountains and old forests to find some origin beasts to engage in a life and death battle. And these people who established their own sects in the city. Perhaps at the beginning, they would have a fierce aura. After all, only by taking one step at a time like this could they establish a foundation. However, after they succeeded, there would be more messy social interactions waiting for them. The fierceness on their bodies might have been ground away long ago. Naturally, he wasn't a match for these elders. Naturally, there were enemies waiting for them on the 2nd floor. A person who claimed to be the sect master of the Cold Light sect. More than 20 sword experts were all blocking the staircase. I am the sect master of the Cold Light sect. Today, I ask that you leave your heads behind. Chapter 185. The sect leader of the Cold Light sect was the first to attack. The sword light in his hand surged. Seeing this, Li Zongjio also smiled. To be able to find the technique to use this elemental energy, you can be considered pretty good. However, it's a pity that you should change your sword. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Zongjio was the first to withdraw. He rushed to the side of the sect leader of the Cold Light sect. The 6-turn steel blade in his hand was suddenly pulled out. Shwa! Li Zongjio's steel blade released an even more terrifying cold light. It was as if the light of this blade had already overshadowed the sect leader of the Cold Light sect. The saber force was ferocious. Clang! The sect leader of the Cold Light sect wanted to use the power of the Cold Light sword art to intimidate the three of them. However, he never thought that Li Zongjio would be even faster, and would directly cut his sword in half with a single slash. Clang! What? The sect leader of the Cold Light sect was shocked. But in the next moment he saw a black shadow flying towards him. It was Elder Qin Lai. Qin Lai's fighting style and intuition were also quite fierce and violent. After this figure approached, a flaming fist filled with elemental energy directly sent the sect leader of the Cold Light sect flying. Bang! With this loud sound, the sect leader of the Cold Light sect felt as if he had been hit by a 10,000-ton boulder, and his entire chest was in the middle of it. When the sect leader of the Cold Light sect landed on the ground, a flame lotus that had long been brewing was waiting for him. This was the might of the flames that Lin Song had released. Ah! So hot! The sect leader of the Cold Light sect immediately roared in shock. The three of them attacked and defeated the sect leader of the Cold Light sect in one move. Don't move! An elder of the Cold Light sect roared, and the disciples behind him also stopped. Let go of our sect leader and let you pass. This elder's eyes were also quite sharp. It was obvious at a glance that they were no match for the people in front of them. After all, to be enemies with these people was clearly a thankless task. If these people were just some hooligans, then it would be fine to take care of them. However, he did not expect these people to be so difficult to deal with. In fact, the two of them were not even on the same level. If they rushed forward recklessly, they would only end up being killed. The most important thing now was to protect the sect master. At the very least, he didn't want to be crippled. They had lost a sect master for nothing. Li Zongjio gestured. Lin Song raised his hand and extinguished the flame, leaving behind the sect leader of the Cold Light sect, who was almost charred black. The three of them swaggered through the crowd of cultivators. Although the cultivators were furious and wanted to take action to stop Li Zongjio's group from leaving, after weighing the pros and cons, they dared not do anything other than glare at them and put on a ferocious front. Who would be able to block those moves just now? Quick, save the sect leader. Carry him down. The pitiful sect leader of the Cold Light sect had only been acting cool for a second before he was slapped in the face. No, this time, his face would probably be burned off. His fate was truly miserable. I don't have the mood to continue walking. Charge. Li Zongjio raised his hand, and a wave of elemental energy brewed and directly smashed towards the ceiling. Boom. Immediately, a beam of light broke through the roof of the northern medicine tower. The three of them leaped up and rushed towards the 6th floor. However, during this process, Qin Lai and Lin Song both dealt with their enemies and charged towards the other floors. For a moment, there was a reign of terror. With the cover of the two elders, Li Zongjio's figure landed on the 6th floor. The moment Li Zongjio's figure landed on the ground, he felt a few waves of killing intent coming from behind him. Boom! Dozens of masked, black-clothed and blood-rimmed people charged out from the darkness. Each of them carried an awe-inspiring killing intent. At the same time, the blade in his hand was incomparably sharp. Li Zongjio could see that in the slightly lit area in front of him, there was a figure sitting there, as if he was in control of the entire situation in this pitch-black and chaotic environment. Everything was under his control as he calmly stared at Li Zongjio, waiting for the moment his head fell to the ground. As for Li Zongjio, the corner of his mouth also curled into a meaningful smile. Hee. The 6-turned steel blade in his hand flickered with an ice-cold light. It seemed that he had been brewing for a long time. When these people rushed out, Li Zongjio had already swung his blade. Boom! A sword slashed out. Immediately, a person who was charging forward was sent flying. The weapon that was connected to his body was also broken into 2 pieces. Bang! Blood and internal organs splattered all over the ground. In the darkness, there weren't even any screams. Just like that, one of them was killed. The rest of them also charged forward. Boom! The person who attacked had clearly locked onto Li Zongjio. His blade could clearly cut Li Zongjio in half. However, when the blade fell, there was no resistance. Obviously, it didn't touch Li Zongjio. What? Just as the person who attacked was puzzled, Li Zongjio's appearance directly appeared in front of him. Seeing this, the person's heart trembled. In the next moment, he saw Li Zongjio's blade slashing towards him. Crack! From head to toe, he was cut into 2 halves. At this moment, he could even clearly see the other half of his body moving away from him. Huh! The commotion in the darkness had been going on for quite a while. However, the sound of swords clashing was relatively rare. Most of the time, there were only muffled sounds of people falling to the ground. There were also sounds of people falling to the ground and splashing water. Fu Chunlei couldn't help but be shocked by this. So what was the situation now? Turn on the lights, Fu Chunlei said in a deep voice. Immediately, a subordinate lit up the lantern. Immediately, the interior of the building was brightly lit. However, under the light of the lantern, the blood-red color was revealed. When people saw it, they couldn't help but feel afraid. On the window, there was a long trail of blood. On the ground, there were also countless streams of blood gathered. There were also many internal organs scattered in the blood. Some things that looked like hearts seemed to be beating on the ground. The broken limbs were also involuntarily moving. Fu Chunlei almost sucked in a breath of cold air. There were broken limbs everywhere. It was simply a hell on earth. Among the pieces of flesh and blood, a figure walked towards Fu Chunlei. His hands were already stained with scarlet blood. After putting the 6 revolution steel blade on the table, Li Zongjio pulled out a chair and sat down. He sat down in front of Fu Chunlei. Just then, he saw a tea set in front of the table. Li Zongjio poured 2 cups of tea. After drinking this cup, you can go on your way. Li Zongjio pushed the cup of tea over. His eyes were filled with indifference and mockery. Fu Chunlei also felt his throat dry up. He was someone who had more or less seen bloody storms. However, this was the first time he saw someone who could sit still like a mountain in this bloody storm. The person who caused this hellish scene was actually here to discuss drinking tea with him. Send me on my way? Your Excellency, aren't your words too full of yourselves? Although Fu Chunlei was shocked that Li Zongjio was able to kill all these black-clothed guards by himself as if they were cabbages, he already had a trump card. He wasn't afraid. It wouldn't be so easy to take his life. Just as Fu Chunlei finished speaking, Li Zongjio had already reached out and grabbed the steel blade. He didn't move from his original position and directly slashed out with the blade. A grade 7 Yuan Master's Yuan energy poured into the blade aura. With a swoosh, Fu Chunlei's head was cut off. It was directly smashed into pieces by Li Zongjio's blade. Bang! Blood-flying sword. Li Zongjio didn't use the blade for this move. Instead, he used the side of the blade. It was like slapping garlic with a kitchen knife. Fu Chunlei's head directly turned into countless pieces of blood and flesh. His 2 eyeballs also rolled on the ground like glass beads. Blood splattered everywhere. Li Zongjio picked up the cup of tea on the table and took a sip. The puppet is already dead. Why aren't you showing yourself? Chapter 186. There was a moment of silence in the surroundings. Soon, an empty voice was transmitted through the air. To be able to kill Fu Chunlei, a grade 3 prime general, with 1 strike, your strength is very strange. A figure slowly walked out of the house. It was a skinny old man. Li Zongjio did not know who the old man in front of him was, but he was the first person he had sensed since he entered this place. He had even sensed the presence of this aura outside the medicine refinery building. Even if he wanted to hide this powerful aura from Li Zongjio, it would be difficult to do so. Li Zongjio's mind power was already very sharp. Furthermore, he didn't try to hide his figure. Instead, he looked at Li Zongjio in a relaxed and arrogant manner. Rosemary Orchid? I didn't expect the leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance to be defeated by such a small thing. When the old man came to the table and saw the cup of tea on it, he immediately understood. It was no wonder that Li Zongjio could kill him so easily. First, he wantonly killed here and used the strong smell of blood to cover up the smell of the rosemary orchid. Fu Chunlei, who was in a state of high tension, naturally overlooked this point. By the time he reacted, Li Zongjio had already made his move. However, it was already too late. When Li Zongjio waved his saber, he had already lost the opportunity to defend himself. He could not mobilize the Yuan power in his body. You are young, but you are not afraid in the face of danger. I will give you a chance now. Join Qingyuan Villa. Not only will I let you live, but I will also help you become the leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance. What do you think? The old man said slowly. As he spoke, he drank the tea with the rosemary orchid powder. He did not even need to circulate his Yuan power to dissolve the poison. A prime ancestor-level expert, Li Zongjio's heart skipped a beat. The skinny old man before him was actually a sky origin ancestor. With this old man's strength, it wouldn't be a problem for him to become a guest in any second-class city. Even in the entire Northern Medicine City, there might not be a single Sky Origin Ancestor-level powerhouse. To a Sky Origin Ancestor martialist, a city like Northern Medicine City was basically a rural area that lacked resources and had a low level. It was like a tiger living with a flock of sheep all day long. There was no pressure or challenge at all. Therefore, after a breakthrough in cultivation, without any special reason, one would usually walk towards a higher level. People walk towards higher places. The Misty Snow Pill Sect Master was only a Sky Origin ancestor. The old man before him was also a Yuan Zong elite. It was no wonder that he was so confident. So it's someone from the Qingyuan Villa. Hee, I'll give you a way out. Kneel down and lick me now and I'll let you go. Otherwise, I'll destroy your Qingyuan Villa sooner or later. Li Zongjio said calmly. When it came to acting tough, who was afraid of who? Since he was so arrogant and wanted to ride on Li Zongjio's head and control Li Zongjio, he had better be prepared to be slapped in the face by Li Zongjio. You're courting death. The old man was enraged when he heard this. He had originally thought that Li Zongjio had some talent and that he would be a good knife in the future if he was groomed. However, from the looks of it, Li Zongjio was clearly courting death. It didn't matter if he had insulted him, but he had actually insulted the Qingyuan Villa. This was equivalent to stepping on the old man's ancestral grave. Instantly, he screamed like a cat whose tail had been stepped on and charged towards Li Zongjio. Since you're courting death, you can go to hell and regret it. The moment Li Zongjio had insulted the Qingyuan villa, his fate had already been decided. Li Zongjio's figure also flew backwards. It was definitely not a wise move to fight the person in front of him head-on. Li Zongjio's figure retreated rapidly. However, his speed was still slightly slower than the speed of a sky origin ancestor. A gust of wind blocked Li Zongjio's path. With a wave of his sleeve, his yuan power turned into a frosty sword and pierced towards Li Zongjio's chest. The frosty air filled the entire room. In an instant, everything in the room was covered in a thick layer of frost. A chill spread in all directions. Li Zongjio also felt the hair all over his body stand on end. At this moment, it was as if thousands of ice needles were streaking across his body. Every single one of them seemed to want to pierce into his body, but they didn't. Hidden Dragon Art. Both of Li Zongjio's fingers flew as he quickly unleashed a set of yuan skills. In an instant, dragon aura enveloped his body. Li Zongjio split into 3 clones on the spot and tried to quickly flee into the distance. However, they were easily defeated by the old man's frosty yuan power. Boom, boom, boom. These 3 clones were actually fake. Then where was the real Li Zongjio? Place the white piece. Li Zongjio's mental energy spread out while the old man was still in shock. When he felt Li Zongjio's mental energy attack, the old man sneered. You want to defeat me with mere mental energy? Don't underestimate the strength of a sky origin ancestor. Boom. As he spoke, the old man's aura was already at its peak. In the next instant, a terrifying frosty air was released from his body. A ray of light actually emerged from the old man's body. 1,000-year ice toad. The instant the ice toad appeared, the temperature in the room plummeted. At this moment, the originally flowing viscous blood water had also turned into little blood ice crystals. Yuan spirit power. Li Zongjio's pupils visibly shrank when he saw the 1,000-year ice toad appear. Yuan spirit power could be said to be a sky origin ancestor's technique. This was also why one could only be considered a true cultivator after becoming a sky origin ancestor. Furthermore, no matter what, a Yuan general would never be able to defeat a sky origin ancestor because of the existence of the Yuan spirit. Before reaching the Yuan general level, although there was a cultivation direction, it wasn't very clear. Even the moves and origin skills that you have mastered are more mixed. However, once the Yuan spirit power was integrated, then one's cultivation method would undergo an earth-shattering change. One would experience the power of the Yuan spirit power and the various magical abilities it would bestow upon one. This could also be said to be the most perfect combination between a human cultivator and a Yuan beast. At this moment, Li Zongjio was only able to fuse with the power of the Yuan spirit displayed by the old man in front of him. It was only in a rudimentary state of control. However, such a state was enough to make people feel deeply shocked. After the 1,000-year ice toad appeared, it directly opened its mouth and ate the white chess piece that Li Zongjio's mind energy had transformed into. Buzz! Li Zongjio immediately felt his feet tremble. His mind was dizzy and he felt as if he was about to faint. His entire body also felt cold from the inside out. TSK, your mind energy is really a great tonic. The old man immediately sneered. At the same time, there was a look of satisfaction on his face. This made one feel disgusted. If you are satisfied, then be satisfied. Why do you have to stick your tongue out and lick your mouth? Li Zongjio really couldn't bear to watch this scene. The Yuan bead within his body trembled. It seemed to have sensed that danger was close at hand. Suddenly, a wave of power erupted from Li Zongjio's body. The shadow of a white dragon gradually emerged. The white dragon appeared. It was only about 10 feet long, but its figure was already enough to crush the ice toad. The ice toad trembled in front of the white dragon. Roar! What? You also have an Yuan spirit. When he saw the white dragon Yuan spirit released from Li Zongjio's body, he was stunned. The old man was so shocked that he couldn't say anything. It should be known that the Yuan spirit power could only be possessed by an expert who was at least at the origin ancestor realm. Li Zongjio was so young, but he was able to display the Yuan spirit power. He was either an origin ancestor realm expert or Li Zongjio was the legendary natural Yuan spirit. The moment the white dragon appeared, it didn't show any mercy. It directly crushed the thousand-year ice toad with its claws and took out the mind energy white chess piece that it had just swallowed. It was domineering and majestic. The moment the ice toad's Yuan spirit was broken, the old man was like a deflated balloon and was severely injured. At this moment, Li Zongjio stretched out a finger without hesitation. During the process, his finger gradually turned into a golden color. "You want to kill me?" The old man instantly erupted with all the essence energy in his body and blocked in front of him. Even if his primordial spirit was broken, the defensive wall formed from this terrifying essence energy of his was not so easily broken. Golden Dragon Finger. Chapter 187. Li Zongjio's finger turned golden. In the hall that was filled with blood-red light. It also emitted a dazzling light. This is such pure power. The old man felt Li Zongjio's attack. Before this pure power, the old man had already forgotten that he was a sky origin ancestor. He just stood there in a daze. The purer the power, the more powerful he was. This was an unchanging principle. Therefore, when he felt Li Zongjio's tyrannical power, the old man was shocked. The old man was completely shocked by this power. Li Zongjio's finger pierced the old man's chest. The power that had gathered around him was unable to block this terrifying attack. Even the inner armor that the old man was wearing was destroyed by Li Zongjio's golden dragon finger. It was easily pierced. The old man immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The thousand-year ice toad above his head was also sent back into his body. The power that burst forth from the golden dragon finger instantly sent the old man flying. He smashed several tables and finally landed on the bookcase with a bang. Only then did he stop. Cough cough. "You? Who exactly are you?" The old man could not believe it. He looked at Li Zongjio in shock. A small hole had been pierced through his heart. Even though he was a sky origin ancestor, he was still able to protect himself. He used all the power in his body to block the wound in his heart. He stared at Li Zongjio, who was in front of him. He recalled the scene that he had just experienced. The old man could not help but cry out, "Innate? Innate Yuan spirit. You are actually an innate Yuan spirit." Li Zongjio was so young. With his sky origin ancestor cultivation, it was impossible for him to master the power of an Yuan spirit. Therefore, it was impossible for him to kill Yuan beasts and absorb their Yuan spirits. The only way was to have an innate Yuan spirit. Who would have thought that Li Zongjio was actually that 1 in 10,000 innate original soul expert? This discovery convinced the old man wholeheartedly. This innate Yuan spirit was an innate cultivator. They were warriors chosen by the heavens. Even if ordinary people tried their best to catch up, they would not be able to match up to them. Now, he had finally witnessed how strong this natural Yuan spirit expert was. Even he, a sky origin ancestor, found it difficult to resist. Li Zongjio walked in front of the old man and looked down at him. "Don't worry, that Qingyuan villa will also accompany you." After speaking, Li Zongjio directly pressed his hand on the old man's head. Wouldn't it be a waste if he didn't properly refine such a fresh sky origin ancestor? Refine. The origin energy in his palm immediately sucked in the old man's blood and condensed it. The old man was also unable to move. Although there was no enmity between the two of them, they were already standing on opposite sides. Since that was the case, it was impossible for them to give up so easily. Li Zongjio did not treat the old man as a dying old man. He only treated him as a real enemy. All the vital energy and blood condensed in Li Zongjio's palm. In the end, it condensed into a blood-colored crystal. The power of the blood crystal is 10 times purer than the power of the blood bead. He is indeed a sky origin ancestor powerhouse. Li Zongjio's eyes lit up when he sensed the power that was transmitted from the blood crystal. This thing would be an extremely powerful weapon, regardless of whether it was consumed when one was injured or used as an aid during cultivation. In fact, this blood crystal was equivalent to a rank 3 spiritual pill. If used properly, It could even be comparable to a grade 4 elixir. This was the benefit that the blood crystal brought. The old man's skeleton fell to the ground. Looking around, there was no longer anyone alive on the ground. Li Zongjio took the storage ring from the old man's hand, as well as Fu Chunlei's storage ring. Fu Chunlei's corpse was still sitting in its original position and had not moved at all. The only strange thing was that his head had exploded. Damn, these guys are so rich. When Li Zongjio checked the storage rings of the two men, he was immediately stunned by their collection. Just the storage space alone was 2 to 3 times larger than Li Zongjio's previous storage space. After all, Li Zongjio's storage ring had previously been given to him by Zheng Haoran to store his items. With a casual glance, he saw that there were no less than 1,000,000 gold yuan in the storage ring. In addition, there were many banknotes. The face value of each note was 10,000 gold yuan. Li Zongjio counted and saw that there were 1,000 banknotes in this box alone. There were also many wooden boxes like this. In the old man's storage ring, there were close to 20 of them. Damn, they are so rich. Fu Chunlei's storage ring was even more exaggerated. There were 50 boxes in total. It seemed that these gold yuan were just spare change to them. Li Zongjio had no concept of money. In his previous life, if he wanted something, he would rarely spend money to buy it. He would either rob or steal it. Just in the process of growing up, after killing many people, the amount of money he had snatched from them was innumerable. If he liked something, someone would give it to him. However, when he went to the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall to buy things today, he realized the importance of gold yuan. He had obtained so much money by casually killing the Union Master of the Apothecary Alliance in a third-grade city. This made Li Zongjio even more amazed. What the fuck, these people are so rich. However, Li Zongjio misunderstood this point. This was because this money was not considered their profit. Instead, it was given out by the Qingyuan villa to bribe the higher-ups. Originally, they had given out 700 million yuan. However, when it reached the old man's hands, 200 million yuan was deducted. Then it was given to Fu Chunlei. Of course, Fu Chunlei could not use this money privately. It was just placed here. If he spent it on something, he would have to report it. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the Qingyuan villa's strength was. Now that the Qingyuan villa had started to make arrangements, it would be a potential disaster for the Xingyan dynasty. However, the most valuable things in these two storage rings were not the gold yuan or the banknotes. The most valuable things in these storage rings were, of course, precious medicinal herbs and pills. In Fu Chunlei's storage ring alone, Li Zongjio found more than 100 grade 3 pills. There was even a 4th grade pill in the black-robed old man's hands. There's actually a 4th grade pill. Li Zongjio opened the medicine box and saw that there was a letter inside the box containing the 4th grade pill. It was a letter written by King Qingyuan. It was written for the city lord of the northern medicine city. This is really a big deal. Using a 4th grade pill and an earth grade armor to win over a mere city lord of the northern medicine city, they are really rich. After reading it, Li Zongjio was secretly speechless. In fact, although this world seemed to be stable, there were undercurrents surging behind the scenes. Li Zongjio was also very clear that this world had never been peaceful. However, in Li Zongjio's view, as long as they did not provoke him, they could do whatever they wanted. If they wanted to involve the Li family, then Li Zongjio would have to sit down and reason with them. This earth-grade armor was equivalent to an earth-grade divine weapon. It was already not low, 1 level higher than the 6th revolution steel blade in his hand. It would be good to bring it back to his father. Bush, bush, bush. Several figures flew out from the hole. When they landed, they instantly smelled the thick stench of blood. Qin Lai and the others looked at the corpses all over the ground and widened their eyes, feeling deep disbelief. Especially when they saw that the only one standing was Li Zongjio. Cough, cough, you guys have big guts. Elder Wudong carried a person in his hand. It was the Iron Leg Sect's sect master. One of the sect master's iron legs was already crippled. After all, they were just some sects that stayed in the city to enjoy life and only knew how to do some messy things to promote themselves and earn money. There was no need to be afraid of them. The Iron Leg sect master originally wanted to angrily scold and scare Li Zongjio and the others so that they would release him. However, when he saw the corpses all over the ground, intestines were flipped out from the stomachs. Brain matter splattered all over the place. He was about to vomit. It's all settled. Let's go and find a place to take a bath. Li Zongjio clapped his hands and said. Even Li Zongjio's body was stained with a lot of blood. Qin Lai and the others looked at each other. They also saw the shock in each other's eyes. They already knew that this protector Li Zongjio was an ordinary person. Otherwise, the sect master would not have directly appointed Li Zongjio as protector Changwu. However, when they saw this hellish scene compared to the people below, they felt lucky that they were not facing Li Zongjio. Today, the Northern Medicine House had been thoroughly bathed in blood. Chapter 188. The City Governor's Mansion of Northern Medicine City. The news of the Northern Medicine Tower being broken in two and the iron stones sealing the door quickly spread to the City Governor's Mansion of Northern Medicine City. The City Governor, Ao Yong, used to be a bandit tyrant in the surrounding area. Later on, the dynasty recruited Ao Yong to take up the position of City Lord. It was because Ao Yong's strength had reached the peak of the Yuan general level and he had 4 grade 9 Yuan generals under his command. If such a lineup really wanted to cause trouble in the dynasty, it would cause a lot of trouble. The dynasty was in need of people. Since Ao Yong had something to talk about, they would sit down and have a good talk. The matter of enlistment was already 5 years ago. In the past 5 years, Ao Yong had also lost the courage and impulsiveness of his youth. Now that he was the city lord, there were many people who flattered him. Most of the time, he didn't need to deal with things himself. Naturally, there would be people who would help him deal with it. So when Ao Yong heard the news, he didn't care at all and just waved his hand. Since the Northern Medicine Tower wants to clean it up themselves, let them do it themselves. Clean up the surrounding 6 blocks and don't hurt the civilians. In addition, inform the city guards to maintain law and order. Everything else will be as usual. Ao Yong said indifferently. This 9 meters tall man sitting in front of a narrow desk looked quite out of place. His hands should be carrying a giant axe and hacking the heaven and earth. But now, they were clean and he liked to drink tea. Ao Yong also knew about the Northern Medicine Alliance. These days, they sent a lot of things to him so that he, the city governor, could take a look. Some things were left to the Northern Medicine Alliance to deal with. Although Ao Yong was a city governor, he didn't have a strong background. However, in this dynasty, there wasn't much of a strong background. They could only rely on their own means. So Ao Yong was naturally willing to make friends with the Northern Medicine Alliance. After all, it would be good for both sides if they were on good terms. I heard that a group of country bumpkins came to seek revenge. How funny. What do they think my Northern Medicine City is? Ao Yong smiled as he drank his tea. Behind Ao Yong, there were always 2 guards following behind him. Ao Yong had a total of 4 grade 9 prime general level powerhouses, who took turns to guard Ao Yong's side. After all, when he was a bandit in the past, it could be said that he had made countless enemies. Over the years, he had never let his guard down. After the Northern Medicine Tower dealt with these country bumpkins, they would slowly clean up the scene. As for how the crime scene report would be written, it would be up to Ao Yong to decide. This poo or tea is indeed fragrant. I've been living too leisurely these days. I'm afraid that the imperial court is already wary of me. Once the world stabilizes, how can people with criminal records like us not be kicked out? Ao Yong also saw it very clearly. Previously, Fu Chunlei had already mentioned the Qingyuan villa. Ao Yong also knew that this might be a turning point for him. Otherwise, according to the development trend of this peaceful world, he might not be able to last for a few years. I have to be prepared. Ao Yong was carefully tasting the poo, or tea that was offered by the people below. It was late at night. The person who reported the situation had only been here for half an hour. Soon, another piece of information was presented to him. What could be done in half an hour? The front and back streets had just been sealed off. Could it be that the battle was already over? The enemy this time was not good. How could they be defeated so quickly? City Lord, bad news. The Northern Medicine Tower was massacred. The leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance, Fu Chunlei, was shot in the head. The communication officer who came to report was extremely shocked. When he heard about this, he still couldn't believe it. He even personally went to the Northern Medicine Tower to find out what was going on. His legs were almost paralyzed on the spot. If it were not for the help of the servants, he would not have been able to walk. He did not come out so calmly. As soon as he left the Northern Medicine Tower, he came to report to City Lord Ao Yong at the fastest speed. What? Say it again? Did I hear it wrong, or did you say it wrong? Ao Yong's eyes suddenly became gloomy and fierce as he stared at the communication officer before him. The Northern Medicine Tower was massacred. A total of 37 people were killed, including the newly appointed leader, Fu Chunlei. When Ao Yong heard this accurate report, he immediately stood up. Take me to the scene. The leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance had been killed in his own territory. How could such a thing happen? As the city lord of the Northern Medicine City, he naturally had to give an explanation. Most importantly, Ao Yong also needed to know whether his things were ready. Fu Chunlei had previously promised to prepare a grade 4 elixir pill for him to break through to the Sky Origin Ancestor realm. These 2 days were supposed to be the day of the transaction, but who would have thought that this would happen? The hope of a breakthrough had been right in front of him, but it had been snatched away in the blink of an eye. How could Ao Yong tolerate this? After killing his way out, he had to get to the bottom of this matter. Give the order to lock down the entire city. No one is allowed to go out. Only entry is allowed. Ao Yong immediately gave the order. The city guards hurriedly raised their torches and rushed to the top of the city wall. The city gates were tightly locked. Countless crossbows were aimed at the streets leading out of the city. In order to prevent thieves from escaping, an open space and passage would be set aside between the city walls and the residents of the main city. This way, it would be convenient to lock down the entrances and exits of the city. Secondly, it would be a good defense in case a Yuan beast attacked. Although the cost of the construction was relatively high, it was still considered a perfect defense facility. Rumble. The city gates were shut. Ao Yong led his men into the Northern Medicine Tower, which was filled with the smell of blood. The fresh blood on the ground had already become viscous. When he arrived at the 6th level, he felt a sinister chill. The remaining cold aura in the surroundings caused Ao Yong to furrow his brows. Judging from the aura left behind, the strength of the person who did this is not below mine. Ao Yong felt the cold aura left behind by the old man and was shocked. After all, the old man's identity had always been hidden in the dark and had never stood out. Therefore, Ao Yong did not know of the old man's existence. In addition, he had already been sucked into a pile of waste by Li Zongjio. In such a bloody scene, who would notice that there was a dead person here? A total of 38 people died. This was simply a massacre. In the eyes of ordinary people, it was unacceptable. This matter is quite tricky, Ao Yong frowned. The other party was able to destroy the Northern Medicine Tower in such a short period of time. The experts from the two sects were already very difficult to deal with. However, the other party seemed to have directly ignored them. This was clearly a way to crush them. This made Ao Yong fearful. Is there anything missing from the medicine storage pavilion? Ao Yong asked. No, nothing is missing, City Lord. The elders from the Northern Medicine Alliance want to come in. We can't hold them off. One of his subordinates came forward to report. Although the Alliance chief and some guards were dead, there were still many alchemists in the Northern Medicine Alliance. These people's qualifications were not below Fu Chunlei's. If they moved their fingers, they could cause a storm. Take away all the elixirs and herbs in the medicine storage pavilion. Ao Yong said to a personal guard beside him. A glint flashed across the guard's eyes and he immediately understood. He turned around and headed towards the medicine storage pavilion. After all, this place had already been reduced to such a state. It was normal for some things to be missing. Even after becoming the city lord, Ao Yong did not change his bad habit of being a robber. However, even if he took away all the herbs and elixirs now, no one would suspect him. No one would dare to suspect him. Gaozhuang Restaurant. Li Zongjio and his group each booked a room in the inn and washed off the stench of blood on their bodies. Then, they ordered a table of dishes and gathered together to eat and drink. Chapter 189. I've finally vented my anger this time. Thank you, elders, for your help, Li Zongjio said as he raised his cup. You're too polite, Enforcer Li. Enforcer Li's matter is our snow elixir sex matter. Naturally, it's our matter. As long as there's a place where we can be of use, just let us know. Li Zongjio nodded. They all came from the same sect. Perhaps they weren't treated as equals in this matter. However, after tonight, they had a faint feeling that Li Zongjio, who was only 16 or 17 years old, was actually stronger than them. He never did things sloppily. He was straightforward and decisive. This kind of ruthlessness wasn't something that anyone could have. It could only be accumulated under a long period of experience and learning. These are the things that we seized earlier. Let's split them. Li Zongjio generously took out the boxes that contained the banknotes. Each of the 4 elders had a box. After all, Sunset City would be under the Snow Elixir Sect's rule in the future. If something happened, they would more or less take care of each other. For Li Zongjio, it wasn't impossible to make friends with some people. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had always been a loner and was used to acting alone. However, it was different now. Since his family was here, he naturally had to prioritize his family. Oh my God, these people are so rich. When Qin Lai and the others saw the money, they were almost speechless. Their snow elixir sect seemed to be glorious, but in fact, they were already doing their best to subsidize the elders. However, due to the surrounding conditions, there weren't any big cities or big families. Everyone cooperated with each other and the Snow Elixir sect wasn't very famous. After leaving the area, one could hear about this sect. That was already very little. It was difficult to keep up with the consumption just by selling pills. Therefore, some disciples couldn't help but go down the mountain to gain experience. Their main purpose was to earn money for the sect. There were also some disciples who didn't want to go out and were directly kicked out. Now, he saw the box of banknotes. His heart started to beat uncontrollably. They had never seen so much money in their lives. However, in front of the younger Enforcer Li, he had to show a certain demeanor. Cough cough, this, elders, please accept it for now. There will be many opportunities for cooperation in the future. Then we'll thank Protector Li first. Come, let's have a drink. Qin Lai said. He was already smiling in his heart. He had never seen so much money before. In this day and age, if you didn't have any money on you, you would be too embarrassed to go out. This box was worth 100 million gold coins. How could he not be happy? After massacring more than 30 people in the Northern Medicine Restaurant, they could still sit here and eat peacefully. No one dared to believe that Li Zongjio and the others had such guts. This time, they came to solve the problem of the Northern Medicine Restaurant. Li Zongjio didn't hesitate at all. However, he had to eliminate the root of the problem. In the next few days, he had to play with the people of the Northern Medicine Restaurant. There was another hidden danger. Since Qingyuan Manor had already thrown an olive branch to the city lord of the Northern Medicine City, Li Zongjio had to find out the situation of the city lord of the Northern Medicine City. Since he would become an enemy sooner or later, it was better to eliminate him now. In Li Zongjio's mind. In fact, he didn't really care about those messy rules. In his opinion, these weren't problems. The rules themselves were meant to be changed. As for the consequences of killing a city lord, Li Zongjio really didn't know. Even if there were any consequences, he didn't care. He would just solve it. Could it be that he would let the city lord continue to be arrogant? The next day, the incident of the Northern Medicine Restaurant had spread throughout the city. The most affected was the business of the Thousand Taste Herb Hall. This was because the Northern Medicine Restaurant could be said to be the golden signboard of the Northern Medicine Alliance. It was on par with the Thousand Taste Herb Hall. After all, the quality of their elixirs were similar and very reliable. Other small medicine stores or elixir halls opened by alchemists might not have such a comprehensive range of elixirs. Moreover, the quality of each elixir couldn't be guaranteed to be of good quality. The northern medicine house had been massacred, and even the medicinal pills and the like had been looted. The people of the northern medicine city could only go to the Thousand Taste Herb Hall to purchase herbs and elixirs. The chief of the Thousand Taste Herb Hall, Lu Manxian, was grinning. I don't know which chivalrous hero it was, but he finally taught the northern medicine tower a lesson. Lu Manxian was in a good mood. If I find out, I'll definitely treat him to a meal and give him a big kiss. It was obvious that Lu Manxian was in an extremely good mood. She was already very happy to be able to say such words. This was because today, their 1,000-flavor herb hall's performance had already exceeded the total for the day after they opened for less than 4 hours. Increase the supply of herbs and let the alchemists refine more batches of elixirs. Take advantage of the northern medicine restaurant's current state to make a big profit. Lu Manxian instructed. The Thousand Taste Herb Hall had its own alchemists. Some of the high-grade elixirs were also sent by the headquarters. I wonder if that guy still wants the 1,000-year ice toad nonsense grass. 17,660,000. That's not a low price. At the thought of this, Lu Manxian thought that if she could add this sum of money, she would be able to hold her head up high when her branch opened for business this quarter. Lu Manxian was very unhappy at the thought of being suppressed by that woman. Now, she finally had a chance to improve her performance. Knock knock knock. Chief, the young man from yesterday is here. Lu Manxian was daydreaming in her office when someone knocked on her door, startling her out of her reverie. Speaking of which, my luck today is really extraordinarily good. With that, Lu Manxian hurriedly tidied up her outfit and walked out. Chief, they're in the VIP room. Very good. Lu Manxian said. Yesterday, she had instructed that if these people came again, they should be directly invited to the VIP room. After all, these people were not simple and could not be underestimated. What's wrong? You look weird. The young pharmacist apprentice seemed to want to say something but stopped. They want to pack all the level 4 herbs. Chapter 190. No wonder the pharmacist trainee was so nervous. In their northern medicine city's warehouse, there were only 3 stocks of level 4 spiritual herbs. The one with the lowest value was the 1,000-year-old ice toad nonsense grass. As for the other 2, one was a 3,000-year-old head orchid. The other was a 4,000-year-old redbud fig. Every single one of these herbs was incomparably precious. If the age was doubled, then the price would also double. The 3,000-year-old head orchid was worth about 50 million gold coins. As for the 4,000-year-old redbud fig, it was even more precious. It was worth at least 90 million gold coins. There were so many of them, even if many of them were to be eliminated. The final total was more than 100 million gold coins. It was even close to 200 million gold coins. Where did these people get so much money? Where did their tone come from? Could it be that they wanted to play dirty? There were a lot of tricks in the underworld. However, if they really wanted to play tricks, then they really came to the wrong place. Although the Thousand Taste Herb Hall was only a place that sold herbs. However, the people who were raised under the medicinal herbs were not freeloaders. Let Elder Gong and the others get ready. I'll go and see what's going on. This was a business worth over 100 million gold coins. Even Lu Manxian did not dare to be too relaxed. After giving the order, she walked towards the VIP room. Inside the VIP room, Li Zhongjiao and the others had been waiting for a while. When they thought about how the 5 of them searched through their pockets yesterday and only managed to gather a little more than 1 million gold coins, it was an extremely embarrassing act. But today, each and every one of them was sitting here in high spirits. When they were in Luoxia City, they were naturally high-spirited and arrogant. After all, they were the elders of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. However, here, they were even more restrained. After all, the people here did not know much about the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. They only thought that it was a small sect in the countryside. Today, even their sitting posture was even more relaxed. After all, everyone had 100 million gold coins in their hands. They could afford anything they wanted. On a branch. The door was pushed open, and Lu Manxian walked in wearing a red dress with a professional smile on her face. "Mister, welcome again. I haven't had the time to ask you since we parted yesterday. May I know your name?" "No problem. Luoxia City, Li Zongjio of the Li family," Li Zongjio said. Then, he pushed the medicinal herb recognition book in his hand out. "I want all 3 of these level 4 medicinal herbs." Lu Manxian repeated this name in her heart, trying to find some memories of this name. However, she didn't have much of an impression. Luoxia City, on the other hand, was quite famous for its scenery. However, this city was lacking in resources, so it wasn't attractive at all. Most of the people living there were only a few aborigines. Not many outsiders came to increase the productivity of the city. Without talented people moving in, how could such a city develop? However, in such a small city, there might be some ancient powers residing here. Ahem, all right, I'll help you calculate. "No need. Go and get the herbs," Li Zongjio said. Then, Lin Song took out a total of 20,000 banknotes. He placed them on the table. They were all packed in boxes. Otherwise, if they were scattered around, it would take a lot of time to clean them up. "These are banknotes from Baoning Bank. They're real." Lu Manxian was also extremely shocked. She was not someone who had never seen money before. However, when the 20 boxes were placed on the table, it was the first time she had seen such a shock. Basically, if someone could take out so much money at once, they would more or less exchange it for purple yuan or bank notes of a higher denomination. After all, the bank notes of Baoning Bank were worth millions or tens of millions. Let's count. Only some ordinary individual investors, or in other words, in order to distract their attention, to carry out some bribery or bribing actions, would exchange such a deposit ticket for such a face value. Seeing so much money in front of her, Lu Manxian calmed down. Lu Manxian calmed herself down and waved for a few people to come over and check. Let Elder Gong take out the herbs. Since the other party had paid so generously, 1,000 Taste Herb Hall couldn't be so stingy. Of course, they had to take out the herbs. Moreover, looking at Li Zongjio and the others, they didn't seem to be worried that they would steal the money. This was only a big order in Northern Medicine City. If it was in other second-tier cities, there might be several orders in a day. This kind of transaction was also common. After all, this was a different level. "Please wait a moment. Eat some fruits first. Our elder will bring the herbs over soon." Lu Manxian smiled. Then, she gave Li Zongjio a name card. "This is my name card. If you need it, we can consider a long-term cooperation. Of course, if you need some customized alchemy services, you can come to me. With young Master Li's name, you can get a 10% discount." Li Zongjio took the name card. Lu Manchuan's name, address, and a string of codes were printed on it. This code was equivalent to an anti-counterfeiting code. As long as the code was reported, it would be recorded in the corresponding file. After all, in such a big environment, it was very important to be introduced by acquaintances. There were many services that could not be accessed without the introduction of acquaintances. Third-class chief. Li Zongjio looked at the title engraved behind Lu Manchuan's name card. "This is my position," Lu Manxian said proudly. To be able to sit in the position of chief at such a young age, she didn't rely on her eloquence. Instead, she relied on her outstanding management and sales skills. A third-grade chief was equivalent to the highest level of authority in a third-grade city. If an ordinary person wanted to sit in this position, it would take at least 8 to 10 years. "What's the position of a first-class chief?" Li Zongjio asked curiously. This was because Li Zongjio also remembered that in his previous life, there was a first-class chief from 1,000 Taste Herb Hall who wanted to help him run errands. However, Li Zongjio ignored him. If any Tom, Dick, or Harry wanted to run errands for Li Zongjio, he was not qualified at all. A first-class chief is already the core of 1,000 Taste Herb Hall's power. In the entire 1,000 Taste Herb Hall, there are only 6 chief executives in the 13 states of the dynasty. A chief executive is in charge of the business in 2 states on average. What kind of concept was this? Within the two prefectures, there were countless first-class and second-class cities in the prefectures. Those who were able to reach such a level were at least top-notch powerhouses within the origin ancestor realm based on their cultivation base alone. This was really shocking. Oh. Li Zongjio nodded. It turned out that this chief executive was quite powerful. He had looked down on people in his previous life, but he hadn't expected them to be at such a high level. However, it wouldn't be long before Li Zongjio stepped on these people again. However, this wasn't his goal. His ultimate goal was to protect his family and allow his family to rise to an extremely high level. Although this path was difficult to walk, it would be achieved one day. Chief Lu, the herbs have been delivered. An old man in a purple robe walked in. Lu Manxian immediately stood up to welcome him. The old man came to Lu Manchuan's side and took out 3 jade boxes from his storage ring. He gently placed them on the table. Young Master Li, please inspect them. Lu Manxian stood up and said. Li Zongjio and the rest also stood up and walked over to the jade boxes. Just as they were about to open them, they heard an angry roar from outside the door. In the name of the city lord, we are here to arrest a murderer. Seal the door. No one is allowed to leave. Chapter 191. There was a commotion outside the Thousand Taste Herb Hall. When Lu Manxian heard the commotion, her face turned cold. The city lord mansion of Northern Medicine City was too arrogant. They dared to come to the Thousand Taste Herb Hall to arrest criminals. They even wanted to close the door of the Thousand Taste Herb Hall. Wasn't this stepping on Lu Manchuan's head? How could she, Lu Manxian, allow such a thing to happen? However, he needed to greet Li Zongjio and the others. He glanced at Elder Gong beside him. Elder Gong immediately understood and turned around to leave. Before he reached the door, he heard a deep roar that sounded like a large bell. Who dares to close the door of the Thousand Taste Herb Hall? The voice was imposing. I'm sorry. If there's no problem with the herbs, it's a deal. Lu Manxian smiled apologetically at Li Zongjio and the rest. After Li Zongjio opened the 3 jade boxes, he inspected them. The dense spiritual energy emitted from the boxes caused the elders to widen their eyes in shock. I didn't expect a level 4 herb to have such dense spiritual energy. Even Lin Song couldn't take his eyes off it. The density of the spiritual energy was too attractive. One couldn't help but want to refine it. However, if that was the case, Li Zongjio would probably kill them. These herbs couldn't be touched carelessly. No problem. Deal. Take the extra money as the fee for today. The Thousand Taste Herb Hall will help you deal with today's trouble. Lu Manxian glanced at Li Zongjio and the rest and smiled. Please wait here for a while. I'll go and send the people from the city lord mansion away. Qin Lai and the rest looked at each other. She seemed to know what they were doing in the city. However, Qin Lai and the rest knew that the conflict between the factions would at most involve benefits. As long as the money was in place, everything would be easy to solve. Moreover, they didn't kill many alchemists. In such a small place, even if they did something wrong, they wouldn't be afraid. They were not afraid. After all, the affairs of the underworld were managed by the underworld, and the dynasty could not manage too much. When they returned to the Snow Fog Alchemy sect, would there be anyone who would dare to raid the Snow Fog Alchemy sect? If that happened, it would cause a huge storm. Based on what Lu Manxian said, she must have guessed something. Li Zongjio, on the other hand, did not care. That Northern Medicine City's city lord will definitely become a stumbling block for our Li clan. I need to go and beat him up. Li Zongjio put away the herbs with a cold glint in his eyes. Even if that Northern Medicine City's city lord didn't come looking for him, he would personally pay him a visit. But if Li Zongjio were to come knocking on his door, that would be fine. But now, these people actually came knocking on their door. What was the meaning of this? They actually wanted to cause trouble for them. Li Zongjio laughed. He had been around for so many years, but he had never seen such an arrogant person. Therefore, Ao Yong was destined to meet his end. At the entrance of the 1,000 Flavor Grass Hall, Zhao Sima, the city guard army's main general, was dressed in martial attire. Behind him, there were hundreds of black iron shields. Behind the shields, There were incomparably sharp weapons that could pierce one's heart. This attack was enough to pierce through a person. Iron shield array, iron spear array. When Elder Gong of the Thousand Flavor Grass Hall saw this scene, he laughed in disdain. Dressed in a long robe, he blocked the entrance by himself. On both sides of him were the guards of the Thousand Flavor Grass Hall. Both sides were at daggers drawn. At that time, when Zhao Sima saw Elder Gong in front of him, he was obviously a little afraid and did not directly give the order to attack. "Huh, Lord Zhao, what do you mean by this?" Elder Gong spoke in a deep voice. His eyes were just like an eagle's as they stared intently at the prey in front of him. For Elder Gong, Zhao Sima was already in his bag. If he wanted to finish him off, he only needed a breath's time to do so. Elder Gong Xing, this order was directly given by the city lord. "Don't make it difficult for me," Zhao Sima said in a deep voice. If he faced the old man in front of him head-on, the one who would suffer in the end would be him. There was no doubt about that. However, Zhao Sima also needed to live. He was not a careless person. The city lord was born as a bandit. He, Zhao Sima, had painstakingly climbed up bit by bit from a small soldier. However, he had no choice. Now that he was under the command of the city lord, he had no choice but to obey the city lord's words. "Oh, if you want to search my Thousand Flavor Grass Hall, you will need a state capital pass. Don't tell me you don't know such a simple thing. Leave immediately. Then you and I will look better. If we get into a deadlock, no one will have a good time," Gong Xing said slowly. His tone also gradually became gentler, as if he was giving the other party enough time to consider. After Zhao Sima heard it, he was also in a difficult position. "Huh, your Thousand Flavor Grass Hall is really bold. You actually dare to openly protect a murderer. Now, you even dare to obstruct justice. Are you the biggest in this city?" A voice sounded. Zhao Sima, who was beside him, immediately retreated to the side and welcomed the person who came. "Greetings to the city lord." It was the city lord of Northern Medicine City, Ao Yong. Ao Yong, who was wearing a brocade robe and an official's hat, walked out of the army, followed by 4 experts. Now that the 4 experts had gathered at the same time, it was obvious that they were going to make a big move. Otherwise, these people would not have gathered like this. "Gong Xing, don't think that you can do whatever you want here just because you are a grade 9 prime general. Today, if I want to go in, no one can stop me." Ao Yong came forward and said. Gong Xing was a grade 9 prime general and was a well-known expert in Thousand Flavor Grass Hall. His name was like thunder. However, others might be afraid, but Ao Yong was not. The 4 grade 9 prime general experts beside him were enough to make Gong Xing retreat. Moreover, Ao Yong himself was at the peak of the prime general level. As a result, Gong Xing's aura was slightly weaker than before. Gong Xing's eyes flashed with a cold light. If it was necessary, Gong Xing would not be afraid of this bandit leader in front of him. If they really fought, with the Yuan skills he had learned, he would not be afraid of this insignificant Ao Yong in front of him. After all, the Thousand Taste Herb Hall had its own armed forces department. It even had a specialized Yuan skill pavilion. This was to allow the people who worked for the Thousand Taste Herb Hall to enjoy the best treatment. If City Lord Ao wants to come in, no one will dare to stop him. As the voice fell, Lu Manxian, who was dressed in red, walked out of the house. She waved her hand and dismissed everyone. Although the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall wasn't afraid, they couldn't openly go against the City Lord's mansion. They would definitely be criticized, and people might even dig up old scores in the future. If City Lord Ao wants to come, the Thousand Flavor Herb Hall will naturally welcome you. However, I have to make things clear. The Thousand Flavor Herb Hall is a place specially approved by the state government. If City Lord Ao thinks that the Thousand Flavor Herb Hall is a place that is harboring wanted criminals, you have to be careful. Lu Manxian said indifferently, her eyes full of arrogance. The meaning behind her words was very obvious. If Thousand Flavor Grass Hall was a place where wanted criminals were harbored, then it would be a challenge to the state government. The state government of Kun State was where the highest authority of the dynasty was located. When it came to this level, even if Ao Yong's words made the other party dissatisfied, The other party only needed to move his finger and he could turn Ao Yong into ashes. Bitch, I'll press you under my body sooner or later. Ao Yong cursed in his heart, but on the surface, he chuckled. Chief Lu, you're exaggerating. You also know that I'm a rough person. Last night, the Northern Medicine Hall was massacred in the city, and 37 people died. We caught one alive and said that the person who did it was from the Li family of Luoxia City. And this morning, there was news that they had entered the Thousand Taste Grass Hall. As he spoke, Ao Yong moved his fingers, and a figure was forcefully pressed forward. There was a thud. Ing Lai knelt on the ground with blood all over his body. His body was also shackled. Obviously, Ao Yong had also taken control of Ing Lai. Although he was found in the Northern Medicine House, Ing Lai wasn't a member of the Northern Medicine House. Even if he had joined the Northern Medicine House, nobody would know because Fu Chunlei was already dead. Chapter 192. Seeing that Ing Lai was captured, she didn't expect that there was still someone alive. This made Lu Manxian frown, but she didn't relax in the slightest. Hee hee, you want to search my 1,000-flavor herb hall just because you caught a random person? If you come here once a day, my 1,000-flavor herb hall will not be able to operate. If the city lord wants to search, then bring the search warrant first. Lu Manxian waved her hand and said, Elder Gong, see the guest out. Gong Xing stepped forward and extended his hand to lead the way. Please. His words were already very obvious. If they still wanted to barge in, then they would really fight on the spot. No one wanted to see such a thing happen. However, Lu Manxian also knew that she couldn't stop these people for too long. If Ao Yong wanted to search, he had to have a reason. After all, Ao Yong was a bandit. At the same time, Ao Yong's methods weren't limited to this. After staring at Lu Manxian for a while, Ao Yong's lips curled into a cold smile. Very good, very good. Director Lu, I hope you don't regret your decision. I officially order that Ming Qing, Ming Yuan, and Ming Wang streets will be locked down for an indefinite period of time. Anyone with a suspicious identity will be thrown into the dungeon of the city lord's mansion for investigation. Before the murderer is caught, the martial law will be in effect. These 3 streets were the streets around the 1,000 Flavors Herb Hall. If one wanted to come to the 1,000 Flavors Herb Hall, they had to pass through these 3 streets. Now that martial law had been ordered, even those with a little bit of a criminal record wouldn't dare to pass through here easily. Moreover, the city lord's mansion had the final say on what was suspicious about them. As long as the city lord's mansion felt that they were suspicious, they would basically arrest them one by one. What could they do? Could it be that they could escape? That was the reason why they wanted to catch all the passers-by. This way, in order to avoid trouble, the customers would choose to go to other places to buy medicinal herbs. Those who wanted to buy medicinal herbs were basically here to save lives. Who could wait indefinitely like this? Director Lu, think carefully before coming to me. Ao Yong stared at Lu Manxian and said with a laugh. This was the benefit of power. With just one sentence, he could use such a method to make the 1,000 Flavors Herb Hall unable to survive. Seal off the 3 main streets immediately. Zhao Sima waved his hand, and his subordinates quickly took action. One by one, they blocked the road, and their faces turned ugly. This had unknowingly increased their workload, so they didn't show the slightest mercy when they acted. Where do you live? What are you doing here? What are you hiding in the bag? Open it. In front of Lu Manxian and the others, the city guards began to carry out their orders. Many of them rushed back home when they heard the martial law order. Some of the customers in the 1,000 Flavors Herb Hall hurriedly threw down their medicinal herbs and left. A few of the braver ones also chose their medicinal ingredients before leaving. However, most of the people left in a hurry. From this, it seemed that the business of the 1,000 Taste Herb Hall had been greatly affected. Even in the next few days, there would be a similar threat here. This made the faces of Lu Manxian and the others extremely ugly. Is this Ao Yong crazy? How dare he go against us like this? That Northern Medicine House isn't a good place either. I heard that there are some problems. It seems that there's something going on here. Lu Manxian said in a deep voice. This matter wasn't complicated. If there weren't any benefits, why would Ao Yong be so proactive? There must be a reason behind it. However, although the other party's method was despicable, it was very effective. Let's wait and see. Don't get into a conflict with them for the time being. Sealing off the 3 streets didn't only affect the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall, but also many other businesses. These people weren't a big deal individually, but if Ao Yong went overboard, when they really joined forces, Ao Yong would have to bear the consequences. Director, just now, young Master Li and the others all left. Lu Manxian was about to go back and tell Li Zongjio what happened here, but the pharmacist trainee hurried over and said, Left? How did they leave? When Lu Manxian heard this, she was stunned. The surrounding area had just been cordoned off, and the streets were filled with city guards. If they weren't careful, they would definitely bump into them. Was this guy trying to cause trouble? Just open the window and then, swoosh, they left. The trainee was probably a little nervous. She gesticulated with her hands and feet to describe the scene just now. Li Zongjio and the others left the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall so easily. If they had said that they were leaving, I would have let them in. Then, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Really, Lu Manxian was also very troubled. Since they had left the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall, it had nothing to do with the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall anymore. Of course, if they still wanted to buy any medicinal herbs, Lu Manxian would be very happy to serve Li Zongjio and the others. After all, she was a businessman. If she came to talk about business, she would naturally be the happiest. As for the grudges, Lu Manxian didn't care at all. If it weren't for the fact that Li Zongjio was rich and generous and gave a total of 200 million yuan, she wouldn't have given them the change. Then she wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. Ao Yong and the others were also walking on the road. Zhao Sima came in front of Ao Yong. He was incomparably respectful. Keep an eye on the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall. If you find anything, immediately take them down. If they resist, kill them on the spot. Yes, sir. Zhao Sima immediately said. Seeing that Ao Yong and the others were leaving, he continued, Farewell, sir. Ao Yong, who was walking, looked up at the sky. Black clouds were surging and it was raining. That's strange. It was cloudless just now, and now it's raining. What bad luck. Ao Yong waved his sleeves. His grade 4 medicinal pills must have been taken away by that damn Li family brat. It didn't matter if you killed someone or took away their money. However, this medicinal pill wasn't something that could be bought with money. For Ao Yong, it was something that could raise his realm and allow him to have a higher level of existence. How could he be willing to give up such a treasure? If he waited until Li Zongjio and the others left the northern medicine city, then there would be even less of a chance. Therefore, he had to take action within these 2 days. Therefore, he, Ao Yong, also brought these 4 experts with him. Whoosh! The rain was pouring down. The 4 people beside Ao Yong held up umbrellas to protect him. When the 5 of them turned into this small alley, the 5 of them couldn't help but stop. In front of the alley stood a figure holding a black oil paper umbrella. It seemed that he had been waiting for a long time. The rain fell, but it splashed 3 inches away from his shoes. Powerful Yuan Qi protected his body. Not a single drop of rain stained his body. In front of him was a heavy downpour. The curtain of rain blocked his view, making it difficult for Ao Yong to see clearly what the small man in front of him looked like. However, the purpose of this person's visit was already very clear. Interesting, Ao Yong sneered. Then, he turned his head and saw that behind him, another 4 people walked out and blocked their path, openly intercepting and killing a city lord. How dare you? You washed the northern medicine tower with blood, and you still want to attack me? Ao Yong sneered. The 4 experts beside him had already separated into 2 sides. 3 of them walked to the back, while the other one faced the person in front. He put away his umbrella and took out his ice blade. Seeing this, Li Zongjio smiled faintly. Actually, you don't have to die, as long as you make a smart decision. Chapter 193. You don't have to die? Make a smart decision? Hearing this, Ao Yong immediately raised his head to the sky and laughed loudly. Even the heavy rain couldn't cover his laughter. With your Yuan master level cultivation? Take down these audacious assassins. Ao Yong did not waste any more time and directly gave the order. The 4 experts beside him immediately stepped forward. In the rain, this figure constantly dashed forward, shattering the raindrops in front of him. From this, one could see how fast this person was. The person who charged towards Li Zongjio was the most senior and strongest of the 4 guards. Dong Hu. A pair of iron hammers suddenly appeared in Dong Hu's hands. The other side of the iron hammers also had spikes. This kind of short and dangerous weapon could often display a terrifying power. These spikes were like the fangs of a tiger king, filled with danger and ferocity. Looks like you made the wrong choice. Li Zongjio helplessly shook his head as he watched Dong Hu charge over. The 2 hammers in his hands were like a storm. Metal attribute Yuan energy. The Yuan energy of a grade 9 Yuan general instantly erupted and covered the iron hammers in his hands. Immediately, the pair of hammers turned into a pure gold color. Boom! The twin hammers descended towards Li Zongjio's head. However, Li Zongjio's figure had already leaped up. From behind him, he directly swung the umbrella in his hand and smashed towards the hammers. The ground shook as the raindrops spread out and swept up like a wave. Seeing Li Zongjio's umbrella swing over, Dong Hu raised his hand. He raised a hand to block the umbrella. Clang! A collision sound rang out and a burst of sparks exploded, sending Dong Hu's figure flying. The iron hammers were the ones that flew, but they were firmly held in Dong Hu's hands, making him feel as if he was smashed away. What a strong force! Dong Hu was shocked. There was a steel blade hidden under the umbrella. Dong Hu glanced at his iron hammers and saw that there was actually a deep mark. A glint flashed across his eyes. 6 revolution steel blade. At a glance, he recognized the weapon in Li Zongjio's hand. The craftsmanship of the 7-star fire room and each weapon were at the peak. It must be completed with the most complete craftsmanship and the most rigorous techniques. After Li Zongjio's attack succeeded, he leaped up again and charged towards Dong Hu. Dong Hu was not careless. This was because he had seen the scene of the Northern Medicine Tower. Almost all the people on the 6th floor had died under the steel blade. Therefore, the person who wielded the steel blade was extremely dangerous. Although Li Zongjio didn't look very old, but at his age there were often monstrous geniuses. As long as one left the Northern Medicine City and went to see the top geniuses of first-tier cities, then it wouldn't be strange to see them in the future. Golden Thunder Tiger's Roar. Dong Hu spun the twin hammers in his hands and suddenly swung them in Li Zongjio's direction. Boom! The Golden Thunder Fury hammer was accompanied by the tiger's roar. It continued to advance and the ground cracked. At the same time, a sound wave rushed towards Li Zongjio. This was a pretty good killer move. It was actually hidden in this Yuan skill, a sound wave technique. However, in front of Li Zongjio, it was obviously not good enough. No matter how despicable the move was or how complicated and troublesome the chain of attacks was, it was nothing in front of Li Zongjio. After all, he was someone who had seen everything. He pried a brick from the side and threw it forward. The brick was smashed into pieces by the sound wave, but the sound wave was also completely exhausted. Boom! The 7 waves of Yuan Qi collided. In an instant, the air on the street became extremely sharp. The air within 100 meters was filled with the aura of battle. Qin Lai and the others were already fighting with the 3 experts. Although the cultivation of the 3 experts was much stronger than Qin Lai and the others, they could still hold on for a while. However, if the battle dragged on, they would not be able to hold on. Therefore, they could only hope that Li Zongjio would end the battle quickly. Qin Lai and the others' goal was not to defeat the enemies in front of them, but to stall for time. Therefore, the 4 of them cooperated and dodged the attacks instead of facing them head-on. They fought well. Bastard, eat my hammer. Dong Hu waved the iron hammer in his hand and directly exploded with Yuan Qi. It formed a strong force field and directly fixed Li Zongjio's body on the spot. Li Zongjio did not resist and even allowed the force to press him towards Dong Hu. No matter how good you are at tricks, in front of absolute power, any action is superfluous. The force gathered in Dong, whose hand was enough to kill a dozen Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio did not give his opponent a chance. The iron hammer in Dong, whose hand reached out and was already smashing towards Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio had already reached out his finger. The power of the golden dragon pattern in the origin bead instantly attached to his finger. Break! Facing the iron hammer that Dong Hu dropped, Li Zongjio turned it into a pure gold finger. So what if your finger turns golden? Dong Hu was disdainful. But the falling iron hammer. Suddenly, with a clink, it flew out of his hand. The strong force caused his wrist to hurt. Not good. The moment the iron hammer flew out, he already felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, in the next moment he felt a pain in his chest. Even his inner armor did not provide any resistance. It was directly pierced by Li Zongjio's finger. After piercing the man's heart with one finger, Li Zongjio did not hesitate. He pulled out the long saber in his hand and directly chopped down on Dong Hu's head. Whoosh! The head fell to the ground and blood splattered everywhere. This slash was not sloppy at all. Dong Hu had died an unjust death. He had not even figured out what had happened to him before his head was chopped off with a single slash. No matter how strong your origin chi was, your head was already chopped off. What else could you do? You're courting death. Ao Yong saw Li Zongjio kill Dong Hu so decisively. First, he was amazed by Li Zongjio's strength. Then he was shocked by Li Zongjio's resolute attitude. He was determined to be his enemy. There must be a battle today. It seems that the thing must be in your hands. If I don't kill you today, how can I manage this northern medicine city in the future? Ao Yong said indifferently. Although Dong Hu was dead, the death of his bodyguard for many years was a very regrettable thing for him. However, Ao Yong did not take this matter to heart. Speaking of bodyguards, Ao Yong did not need so many people to protect him. It was just that there were occasions where it was necessary. Moreover, it was more convenient for these people to take action than to do it himself. Since Li Zongjio was dead, so be it. He couldn't possibly be sad over it. The most important thing right now was to kill Li Zongjio and snatch that thing away. A shiny saber appeared in his hand. It's been almost 6 years since I left the mysterious underworld mountain. My golden fragment blade is about to rust. If I don't destroy you today, I'll definitely kill you. If I don't kill you today, how can I, Ao Yong, go out in the future? Ao Yong let out a low roar. Instantly, a terrifying light burst out from the Zamadeo and rushed towards Li Zongjio. Boom! Saber chi burst forth. When the saber slashed out, the rainwater within a 10-meter radius evaporated. Li Zongjio executed his footwork and did not fight it head-on. After all, if he fought it head-on, the outcome would be very miserable. Li Zongjio's origin chi cultivation was far from being a match for Ao Yong. Chapter 194. Ao Yong's speed was extremely fast, and his attack was also extremely ruthless. After this attack, he once again caught up. The Zenmadeo was like a light that was brewing as it suddenly fell towards Li Zongjio. Clang! Li Zongjio blocked with both hands. The 6-revolution steel blade in his hand also shook violently. It constantly trembled in his hand. At the same time, Li Zongjio's figure was also knocked back dozens of meters. Boom! His feet streaked across the water. The steel blade in Li Zongjio's hand fell to the ground. With a loud bang, the remaining force of Ao Yong's attack instantly hit the ground, causing a large earthquake. The bluestone slabs on the ground were directly shattered into hundreds of pieces. I thought you had some great ability. Today, leave your head here. Ao Yong roared. He had been in Northern Medicine City for so many years, but he had never met anyone who dared to rob him. If he didn't make a move and let these people know that he was the originator of this robbery, they would really think that he had ascended to heaven. He once again circulated the Yuan power in his body, condensing it on the Zenmadeo in his hand. The Zenmadeo suddenly bloomed with brilliance, as if there was a giant crocodile lying on the Zenmadeo. As the blade fell, the crocodile also fiercely swung its tail. Li Zongjio looked at the scene in front of him. This was not a real Yuan spirit. Now that Ao Yong was at the peak of the Yuan general level, he more or less had some contact with Yuan spirits. Before he truly had the ability to absorb Yuan spirits and condense his own Yuan spirit, he would also try to use his own Yuan power to create a Yuan spirit. It helped him to feel the power of the Yuan spirit in advance. Although this was a fake Yuan spirit, its power was still quite strong. When the blade fell, even if Li Zongjio was hiding in the distance, he would definitely be affected by the blade. The only way was to face it head-on. Blood Frenzy Guide. Golden Dragon Yuan Spirit, Ancient Golden Body Shield. Li Zongjio bit the tip of his tongue and spat a mouthful of essence blood into his palm. Immediately, he could feel that the Yuan power in his body was rapidly increasing. Boom! The elemental energy in Li Zongjio's body instantly surged. He had broken through the limit of the Yuan general realm. In the blink of an eye, he had reached the realm of a second-grade origin general. The ancient tyrant golden body cover was like a layer of golden light that fell on his body. When Li Zongjio's entire body was covered by the golden light shield, Ao Yong's blade just happened to fall. Boom! Li Zongjio held the saber above his head with both hands and took the saber head-on. The energy within Ao Yong's body was like a terrifying waterfall. It suddenly poured down and washed away Li Zongjio until he was about to collapse. If an ordinary person was hit by this blade, they would definitely be smashed into pieces. However, Li Zongjio's Yuan Sutra was able to absorb this energy. Golden Dragon? Ao Yong was not blind. Although Li Zongjio's Golden Dragon origin spirit was very low-key, it had already covered Li Zongjio's entire body. This was the genuine power of the origin spirit. You're actually a natural origin spirit. Ao Yong was immediately taken aback. His face was also filled with shock. Li Zongjio did not give the other party too much time to be surprised. He stretched out his hand and his finger suddenly turned golden. Ding! The finger fell on the saber. It was like a treasured saber that could cut through iron like mud. It directly broke the saber in half. My golden fragment saber! Ao Yong exclaimed. He had hired a professional blacksmith to forge his golden fragment saber. Although he was not a blacksmith at the level of the 7-star flame room, he was definitely a top-notch existence in northern Medicine City. His personal weapon for many years was now so fragile in front of Li Zongjio. This also shocked Ao Yong. However, Li Zongjio's movements did not stop. After breaking the saber with one finger, the finger once again turned into a sharp sword and pierced towards Ao Yong's body. This finger actually has the power to pierce through gold. Ao Yong felt the power of Li Zongjio's golden finger at close range. Previously, Dong Hu had died because of this move. However, Ao Yong did not see it clearly at that time. He died before he could see it clearly and thought that something had happened to Dong Hu. Now that Ao Yong was facing this move personally, he also felt the terrifying threat in it. However, this was not the first time Ao Yong faced such danger. Immediately, the Yuan power in his body burst out. Just relying on the Yuan power fluctuation of a peak Yuan general, it was enough to send Li Zongjio flying. This was the gap between levels. There was never any suspense. However, just as Ao Yong was about to release his power and send Li Zongjio flying, suddenly he saw Li Zongjio's eyes. When he saw Li Zongjio's eyes, Ao Yong felt as if he had fallen into a quagmire. Although he clearly knew that this was a dangerous thing, and it was very easy to lose his life here, he still couldn't help but look at Li Zongjio's eyes when he stared at Li Zongjio. The pain in his chest woke Ao Yong up. What? Evil Soul Eye. Li Zongjio's most powerful killing skill. Under normal circumstances, Li Zongjio wouldn't need to use such a skill. When he had killed Mu Yuan, Li Zongjio had used this move. Now, with the increase of his mental power and Yuan power, the attributes and effects of the Evil Soul Eye were also more impressive. Even Ao Yong, who was at the peak Yuan general level, could not resist it. What kind of move is this? Ao Yong was unwilling, but Li Zongjio did not answer him. Li Zongjio withdrew his finger from Ao Yong's body. When he executed the metal elemental finger, it consumed a large amount of elemental energy. Because he wasn't confident that he would be able to hit Ao Yong, Li Zongjio forcefully executed the evil soul eye to stop Ao Yong. In fact, the effect of the evil soul eye was targeted at some experts who had weaknesses in their hearts. With a glance, one would be able to see the weakness in the depths of one's heart. Then, it would be like a test of one's inner demons. However, Li Zongjio's strength was still not enough. Therefore, the effect of the evil soul eye was only to cause one to be in a trance. That brief moment of absent-mindedness was enough. It was enough for Li Zongjio to kill a person. Although the 6 revolving steel blade in his hand was chipped, it was still sharp. Li Zongjio did not hesitate and slashed at Ao Yong. But Ao Yong reached out and grabbed Li Zongjio's blade. "You? Who exactly are you?" If someone were to tell him that Li Zongjio had really come from the tiny Sunset City, then Ao Yong would never believe it. His eyes were filled with unwillingness, and he longed for an answer. Ao Yong had been in Northern Medicine City for so long that everyone had to give him face. Li Zongjio was clearly here to kill him. His goal was very clear. He really wanted to know who the person who killed him was. Li Zongjio looked coldly at Ao Yong. With a gentle twist of his wrist, he cut off all 5 of Ao Yong's fingers. Then, with another slash, he took Ao Yong's head. Plop. Ao Yong's head rolled on the ground with a pair of ferocious eyes wide open. Never in his dreams did he expect this. He had been keeping a low profile in the city for several years. Even in the perilous, mysterious underworld mountain range, he had survived. In the turbulent Northern Medicine City, he had lived a prosperous life. Today, he had died in the hands of an unknown person. On such a cold and rainy day, Ao Yong's body fell. Li Zongjio naturally took off his storage ring. Who knew how much money was inside? Ever since Li Zongjio knew that his family was short of money and was actually so poor, Li Zongjio was also interested in the storage ring. Otherwise, Li Zongjio usually would not be so interested in these things. These things were just worldly possessions to Li Zongjio. City Lord? City Lord is dead. The 3 people who were fighting with Qin Lai and the others suddenly realized that Ao Yong was dead. Their expressions immediately changed. They naturally did not care if others died, but Ao Yong was dead. They would not live for long either. As a result, the 3 of them stopped moving and stopped tangling with Qin Lai and the others. They just stood where they were and allowed the rain from the sky to fall on their bodies with a pitter-patter. Li Zongjio glanced at the 3 people who had stopped. "I can cure the 100 ghost heart-devouring poison in your bodies." Chapter 195. Li Zongjio's voice wasn't loud, but the 3 of them heard it clearly. It could be cured? Could it really be cured? The 3 of them looked at each other. They had been trapped by Ao Yong's side all these years. It wasn't because of Ao Yong's ability to convince the masses and make them loyal and devoted, willing to follow Ao Yong wholeheartedly. It was because Ao Yong had hired a poison master who was good at refining poisons to refine an extremely toxic slow-acting poison called the heart-devouring 100 ghosts. It was a very obscure poison. After the poison was successfully refined, Ao Yong had directly killed the poison master. The 4 of them were the ones who had been forced to take the poison. That was why they had stayed by Ao Yong's side so wholeheartedly. If they didn't take the antidote regularly, they would die from the backlash of the heart-devouring 100 ghosts in less than a month. In fact, the 4 of them weren't the only ones who had taken the poison. Only the 4 of them had survived. Only Ao Yong knew the formula for the antidote. Now that Ao Yong was dead, there might be an antidote in this world. However, it was almost impossible to find it in a short month. "How can we believe you?" Among the 3 of them, there were 2 men and 1 woman. One of them was a couple. The man was called Chang He and the woman was called Luo Ri. There was another man who was slightly older. He was the strongest after Donghu. He didn't talk much, but when he fought, he was also a ruthless person called Luo Sha. The one who had spoken was Luo Sha. At the moment, they seemed to have no choice. If they didn't believe Li Zongjio, they would die from the pain of the heart-devouring 100 ghosts in a month. No one would be able to save them. It wasn't easy to attain this level of cultivation and kill Ao Yong. However, there was no way to survive this poison. They couldn't see any hope in it. Li Zongjio only found out that these people had been poisoned after killing Donghu. After all, he was an experienced alchemist. Li Zongjio's judgment in this aspect couldn't be wrong. The heart-devouring 100 ghosts poison was indeed not weak, but in front of Li Zongjio, it was nothing. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had seen poisons, and even poisons that he had personally tasted were thousands of times more potent than this. Even the poison pill that he had refined some time ago was much more toxic than the heart-devouring 100 ghosts. If an ordinary person took that poison pill, the effect would be very significant. Only a body like Li Zongjio's could withstand it. Qin Lai and the others also flashed and landed beside Li Zongjio. They looked at the two corpses on the ground. His heart was also filled with shock. It was 4 against 3, but none of them succeeded in the end. They were even on the verge of defeat. If it was night, they would probably be deads. Li Zongjio, on the other hand, was fighting against 2 of them alone. He didn't even suffer any injuries, yet he had already killed all of them. The difference between them was very obvious. Lin Song propped up an elemental energy field, blocking the surrounding rainwater outside of his body. There is a black line on the left side of your chest. If this black line reaches your throat, it will be the day you die. If I'm not wrong, the medicinal soup that this person gave you every month didn't weaken the poison. Instead, it suppressed it. Moreover, the poison is accumulating over time and is constantly getting stronger. Even if you continue to take that medicinal soup, you have at most half a year to live. Li Zongjio said slowly. Although they were unsure of the authenticity of the medicinal soup, the black lines on their chests were indeed as Li Zongjio had said. Even the information that they had privately gathered and the pharmacists that they had visited all had the same opinion. If they were to continue, only death would await them. As long as the black line reached their necks, there was no turning back. Give me 7 days. I can refine an elixir that can suppress the heart-devouring poison in your body for half a year. Half a year later, I will detoxify you and let you go. Li Zongjio stated his condition. It was very straightforward. What if we don't agree? Then I'll kill you today. There's no need to wait a month. Li Zongjio said indifferently. The 3 of them looked at each other and whispered to each other. Does this person really have that kind of ability? Ordinary people don't know about the poison in our bodies. This kid has the ability to kill Ao Yong. Maybe he really has that kind of ability? We're going to die anyway. If Ao Yong doesn't die today, we'll continue to be puppets. We might even die half a year later. Why don't we take a gamble now? I don't want to die at such a young age. This kid looks unlucky. If we don't make a stand today, I'm afraid we won't be able to live. Sunset glanced at Li Zongjio. Although the 4 experts by Li Zongjio's side were nothing to be afraid of, the fact that he could mobilize so many experts at such a young age was enough to prove his strength. In addition, he wasn't weak. He killed Ao Yong directly. Over the years, there were many people who wanted to kill Ao Yong, but only Li Zongjio succeeded. What kind of heaven-defying ability did this kid have? After some discussion, Luo Sha stepped forward and knelt in front of Li Zongjio. I, Luo Sha, am willing to submit to young master. Changhe and Sunset looked at each other, then knelt beside Luo Sha. Changhe and Sunset are willing to submit to young master. Li Zongjio nodded in satisfaction. With a flick of his finger, 3 elixirs shot out. Swoosh! The 3 of them reached out and caught the elixirs. This is an antidote. It can expel a small portion of the poison in your body. 2 days later, come to the Li family in Sunset City to find me. After speaking, Li Zongjio turned and left. Lin Song and the others followed closely behind Li Zongjio. At this moment, Lin Song and the rest were extremely impressed with Li Zongjio's methods. Even though it seemed simple, it wasn't easy to take in all these people. These people had done all sorts of evil deeds. In order to survive, they were willing to do anything. If it wasn't for the poison in their bodies, they might have killed Ao Yong. However, Li Zongjio's performance made them feel an invisible pressure. Although they had already submitted, this antidote was a moment to prove his strength. It proved that Li Zongjio had the ability to cure them and expel the poison in their bodies. In addition, they had to report in 2 days to give them enough time to think. After all, if they were fast, they would only need 1 day to reach Sunset City. The speed of these experts was difficult to estimate. It was normal for them to run for half a day. Now, they might still have some regrets and doubts, but after eating the detoxification pill, they would not make such a decision. Instead, they would run to Luoxia City to look for Li Zongjio. In this trip to Northern Medicine City, they had seen Li Zongjio's strength. No one dared to believe that Li Zongjio was so young, but his strength was so strong. No one here could be Li Zongjio's opponent. The matter of the Northern Medicine Alliance had been resolved. That night, Li Zongjio and the others had dinner in Northern Medicine City and then left. When they arrived outside the city, they sat on the white crane and soared into the sky. They flew toward Sunset City. Ao Yang's body was found by the city guards. This piece of news could be said to be incomparably heavy, and it directly caused an uproar in Northern Medicine City. What kind of concept was this? This might be the biggest thing that had happened in the Xingyan dynasty for a long time. A city lord was directly killed by someone. There were many different opinions about the person who did this. No one knew who it was. To have the strength and guts to kill the city lord, this was a serious crime. Once it was found out, the whole family would be executed. When Lu Manxian of the Thousand Taste Herb Hall heard the news, she put down the account book in her hand in shock. What Ao Yong is dead. Although Lu Manxian didn't know who the culprit was, when she heard the news, her first thought was that it was the young man who had just appeared 2 days ago and had a calm expression on his face. Was it him? No one gave Lu Manxian an answer. Chapter 196. Outside the Flying Cloud City. The Huangyuan or valley was surrounded by the guards of the Li family and the Bai family. Although the two families were working together to mine resources from afar, not many people dared to provoke them. Firstly, the Su family had already offered the 80 million gold coins with both hands. They knew the consequences. If the young man came again, the consequences would be unimaginable. The Su family was also completely defeated in this battle. The Di-Xian Merchant Alliance did not choose the Huang family to join. Originally, it was a choice between the Huang family and the Su family. On the surface, the Su family had a better chance of winning. However, after Su Tianfeng's actions, the Su family was directly dragged down and collapsed. It would take at least 10 years for him to recover from the loss of his primordial qi. Fortunately, Su Tianfeng was already dead. Otherwise, Su Tianfeng would have been tortured to death. However, the Di-Xian Merchant Alliance did not extend an olive branch to the Huang family. Instead, they sent an application to the Li family, hoping that the Li family could join the Di-Xian Merchant Alliance. This action was extremely puzzling in the eyes of many people. After all, the Li family was only a family in the Luoxia city. It was difficult for them to reach the top. In comparison, the Huang family's strength was obviously above the Li family. If they were to compare, the Huang family's joining would be able to inject more powerful and fresh blood into the alliance. The Li family was happy, but the Huang family was not. Initially, they didn't want to provoke the Li family. However, now that the Li family wanted to step on their Huang family's head and shit on them, they couldn't tolerate it. Therefore, the vicinity of the Huangyuan or had become lively recently. They would be attacked from time to time. Fortunately, Li Shuilan and Bai Luoxue were there. The two of them cooperated very well. During this process, Li Shuilan also recognized Bai Luoxue's ability. How could such a girl be born in the Bai family? Why didn't the Li family have such an outstanding disciple? Of course, Li Zongjio didn't count. Li Zongjio was already a god. It could be said that Li Zongjio had fought for this country. Apart from that, the sales of the Huangyuan or had also reached a stalemate. This was because the Huang family had done something behind the scenes, blocking the sales of the Huangyuan ore. The amount of Huangyuan ore that had been mined was already piled up like a mountain. It was placed in the warehouse. Firstly, there was no way to sell it. Secondly, the price would be very low. Secondly, with so many valuable things piled up here, it was more or less a danger. Perhaps someone was thinking about him all the time. After all, the trouble caused by the Huang family was short-lived. However, the Li family and the Bai family had encountered some problems. It was the entrance of the newly opened tunnel. It was indeed detected that there was a new mine within. Moreover, the grade of this mine was several grades higher than that of the Huangyuan ore. Even some of the crystal fragments at the edge of the mine were detected to have a much higher degree of energy than that of the Huangyuan ore. However, when the mining team wanted to continue their exploration, they discovered that the entrance they had opened led to a tunnel. The appearance of this mysterious tunnel seemed to have been formed by itself. However, apart from this piece of news, there was no other news. All of the exploration teams had disappeared. Yesterday, Elder Li Shuilan had personally gone there. In the end, Elder Li Shuilan had escaped with serious injuries. The rest of the guards had all died in the mysterious tunnel. This had happened at the same time that Li Zongjio had left the Li family. Li Tianqing had also arrived at the Huangyuan ore site on the same day. According to Elder Li Shuilan's description, in the mysterious tunnel of the Huangyuan ore, there was a very dangerous and terrifying crawling meta-beast. As for what it was, Elder Li Shuilan couldn't say. They are very fast and use 4 legs to crawl. In addition, their tails are longer than their bodies. Their main attack is using their tails. All of the guards died because of their tails. Elder Li Shuilan had already been sent to Flying Cloud City for treatment. On the second day, the entrance of the tunnel was temporarily sealed. No one was allowed to enter. After many rounds of research, they finally had an idea of the meta-beast inside. Living corpse? There is such a meta-beast? Li Tianqing looked at the information in his hands. Living corpses are not considered living creatures. They are bodies of power born from the nourishment of strong yin energy. They only have power but no intelligence. A bespectacled elder from the Li family said. This elder's name was Li Taishu. He was considered to be the most knowledgeable person in the Li family. He wasn't strong, but he knew a lot about meta-beasts. These living corpses must have mutated. That's why they grew such a long tail. It is an offensive weapon derived from their excessive energy. If one is bitten by it, one will be infected by the corpse demon. However, don't worry. The environment in which they can survive is the place surrounded by the yin energy in the tunnel. If they leave that place, it will be difficult for them to survive. They must be guarding something in this place. There might be a tomb below. Elder Li Taishu said. Corpse demon? Li Tianqing gasped as he thought about the wounds on Elder Li Shuilan's body. If that was the case, then it was very likely to be true. Tomb? Is there any record of who is buried below? Li Tianqing asked. Li Taishu shook his head. This area used to be part of the Blackwater Forest. It was later developed, so there are no specific records. However, based on my speculation, the cultivation of the person buried here is at least at the Yuan monarch level. Yuan monarch level? Even Li Tianqing was shocked. They had never thought that they would come into contact with such an unattainable powerhouse in their lifetime. However, they had only taken over the Yellowstone mine for less than a month and had already unearthed the tomb of a Yuan monarch. This was a huge leap in level. Li Taishu's breathing was a little hurried. He had been studying for a long time. Finally, he had encountered a time when he could unleash his potential. Furthermore, after serving the Li family for so long, he also hoped to see the Li family soar and spread its wings one day. Perhaps there was an opportunity in this Yuan monarch tomb that could make the Li family a wealthy family. Even if they couldn't do it now, as long as they could obtain the treasures in this tomb, they would definitely be able to make the Li family soar and shine with the accumulation of time. Family head, this is an opportunity. This news must not be leaked. Elder Li Taishu said in a low voice. There were only the two of them in the meeting tent. Before this, Elder Li Taishu had already sensed that this matter wasn't simple, so he had cleared everyone out. This matter is of great importance. We need to convene an elders' meeting. The Li family alone won't be able to take it all. Li Tianqing could see clearly that if Li Taishu's guess was true, then it wouldn't be simple. It definitely wouldn't be something that the Li family could take down. Besides, we have to wait for Zongjio to return first. Li Tianqing thought of Li Zongjio. Although Li Zongjio was still a child, Li Tianqing had a feeling that only Li Zongjio had the experience to deal with this matter. If he rashly gave the order and forced his way into the tomb, then it might bring disaster to the Li family. Young master? The young master is still young, and this matter is of great importance. Family head, you have to think carefully. This might be the glorious future of the Li family. Li Taishu was a little anxious. In his opinion, he should immediately organize a group of people to head over and extract the treasures in this tomb. Although it was said to be the tomb of a Yuan monarch powerhouse, so much time had already passed. Besides some living corpses, there probably wouldn't be anything that was a threat. Rest assured, elder. I naturally won't hand over the Li family's glorious opportunity to others, Li Tianqing said with a wave of his hand. Upon seeing Li Tianqing's attitude, Li Taishu knew that he couldn't persuade him. In the end, he had no choice but to take his leave. Chapter 197. After Elder Li Taishu left, Li Tianqing ordered the area to be temporarily sealed off. No one was allowed to get close. The peace would only last for 2 days. A group of elite and experienced assassins descended from the sky and took advantage of the night to kill their way into Li Tianqing's tent. Suddenly, battle cries rose one after another. Flames appeared in the night. Enemy attack! A Li family guard had just finished shouting when his head was chopped off by a blade. Kill! Several black-clothed men who had just climbed up the hill skillfully crept toward Li Tianqing's tent. It's here! These people looked at each other. Just as they were about to break the tent in front of them, they suddenly heard a low whistling sound. Whoosh! A sharp arrow whizzed past in front of him. The leader tilted his head and dodged it, but he didn't expect that the arrow would directly pierce through the other person's cheek. The arrow went in from the left side of his face and came out from the right side. Watch out for the archers! The black-clothed masked man shouted, but it was too late. When the arrow whizzed past, he saw 2 figures descending from the sky. Bastard, eat my saber! Zhu Yan's figure descended from the sky, and the saber energy in his hand burst forth. The black-clothed man panicked and tried to block, but his speed was cut off by the saber. As he retreated, the archer who had been watching from afar released another attack. Whoosh! Another arrow was shot. Ding! He was lucky to block it, but the long saber in his hand trembled from the impact. He did not expect that Li Tianqing would have so many experts guarding him. Could it be that Li Tianqing had brought all the experts of the Li family with him? Boss! Run! Suddenly, a black-clothed man's figure fell, as if an invisible hand was strangling his neck. With a plop, the black-clothed man fell to the ground. He had already lost his breath. However, no one beside the black-clothed man made a move. Suddenly, the leader of the black-clothed men was shocked. The leader of the black-clothed men whistled. It was impossible for them to escape using the original route. The only way was to charge into the valley and kill their way out from the other side. That was just a mine. Although there was a cliff outside the mine with their equipment, they could easily slide out. Don't let a single one escape. Li Tianqing rushed out of the tent. He was doing some research on the living corpse to see if there was any way to deal with it. However, the sudden attack of these people was beyond Li Tianqing's expectation. However, Li Tianqing wasn't someone to be trifled with. A black-clothed man who was close to Li Tianqing charged over, but Li Tianqing directly twisted his head off. You're courting death. How dare you attack my Li family's campsite? The Li family's guards also reacted very quickly. In addition to the traps and mechanisms that were set up in the surroundings, more than half of the nearly 20 black-clothed assassins were killed. Swish! Swish! The 100-mile archer god, Old Hay, with his bow, guarded a path that led to the mine. It was directly sealed off. The remaining 7 people gritted their teeth and quickly rushed to the other side. This new side was the newly opened mine of the Li family. It was also the place that was proven to have a graveyard. Don't chase anymore. Li Tianqing stretched out his hand to block the pursuing guards. Seeing those people rush into the graveyard passage, Li Tianqing hurriedly said. Nearly 100 Li family's guards moved together. If they wanted to chase, they could definitely kill these 7 people. However, since Li Tianqing gave the order, they stopped. Family head, are you okay? Zhu Yan came to Li Tianqing's side and asked. I'm fine. Behind the group of guards, a young girl in a light green dress walked out. Xiaoya. Xiaoya's mental strength had stabilized at the 3rd level under Li Zongjiu's guidance. Even Li Zongjiu didn't expect such progress. He couldn't even believe it. Xiaoya's innate original spirit was the Millennium Water Lily. Such a divine object couldn't be easily mastered. However, looking at Xiaoya's strength, it seemed that she had a natural understanding with the Millennium Water Lily. Moreover, the degree of understanding was very high. Therefore, the speed at which she mastered it was very fast. Those dead men in black didn't have any wounds on their bodies. However, they were tortured to death in their sleep. This was the most terrifying method. You can't say when you will be killed without any evidence or wounds. This mercenary team didn't continue to take risks. Instead, they stayed by Li Tianqing's side and became his personal guards, secretly protecting Li Tianqing. With Li Zongjiu's strength, naturally, he didn't need their protection. However, Li Tianqing's strength was still a little lacking. Tonight, it happened that they were here. Therefore, they could easily block the attack. Everyone, strictly guard the checkpoint. If these people come out, shoot them directly. Don't allow them to come close to the camp. Li Tianqing said. Yes, family head. Old He jumped down from the hillside. He was curious why they stopped chasing. If they continued to chase, these people wouldn't be able to escape. They actually dared to attack the Li family's camp. They were really desperate. Were they tired of living? Very quickly, Li Gue reported the identities of these people to him. They are all from the Huang family in Flying Cloud City. Even if I don't check, I have a rough idea. Li Tianqing said in a deep voice. Suddenly, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Not good. Quickly send people to Flying Cloud City to protect Elder Xuelan. Li Tianqing said immediately. Since these people dared to launch an attack on the Li family's campsite, it was very likely that they would launch a sneak attack on the injured Li Xuelan. If they kidnapped Li Xuelan, the Li family would also be restrained. Not only Li Xuelan, but Bai Luoxue was also arranged to go to the city. Firstly, she was to take care of Li Xuelan. Secondly, she was to deal with some merchants in Flying Cloud City. After all, the Huang Yuan ores had to be sold. Inside the mine, those who managed to escape to this place were relieved when they saw that the Li family members didn't chase after them. At least for now, they had a chance to catch their breath. I didn't expect Li Tianqing to have such an expert by his side. The leader of the black-clothed men took off his mask. It was the second head of the Huang family in Flying Cloud City, Huang Pei. My leg was also hit by an arrow. Huang Pei's leg had a bloody hole. It wasn't that the arrow missed. Instead, when he was running, the arrow directly pierced through his leg. Blood flowed continuously and seeped into the ground. After bandaging the wound, blood continued to flow out from the wound on his leg. This fucking arrowhead even has the function of bleeding. Huang Pei cursed angrily. If he went out and found this guy who shot him in the back, he would definitely crush his head. Do you guys smell something? Huang Pei suddenly felt a pungent smell. This kind of disgusting smell, as long as one was a person, they would not be able to ignore it. Not only Huang Pei, but the others also smelled it. It was as if something had entered their nostrils. Drip. Huang Pei felt the top of his head sink. It was as if something was dripping on his head. Huang Pei reached out his hand and touched it. He found a green sticky substance sticking to his hand. His subordinate, however, was looking at him with an extremely terrified gaze. What happened? Did you see a ghost? Huang Pei couldn't help but ask. Suddenly, a cold wind blew. Huang Pei, who was alert, shrank his neck. He seemed to have understood something. Huang Pei slowly raised his head and looked up. His eyes were filled with terror. Roar! Just as Huang Pei raised his head, a heavy object fell from the ceiling of the cave. A long tail instantly coiled around Huang Pei's head. With a loud bang, Huang Pei's head was coiled off. Then he forcefully pulled out the head. Blood splattered everywhere. Ghost! When the remaining members of the Huang clan saw this, they immediately cried out in alarm. Everyone got up and walked out of the cave. However, before they could take a few steps, they saw 3 of the same creatures falling down from the cave with a loud bang. They lay on the ground, sticking out their scarlet tongues. The tongues were as long as whips. In this valley, only a few screams were left. After that, there was no more sound. Li Tianqing and the others in the distance frowned. Some of them were puzzled, but when they looked at Li Tianqing, they seemed to understand something. Seal this place. No one is allowed to come close. Chapter 198. Li Zongjio and the others rode on the white crane and flew to Sunset City. Currently, there was only an old housekeeper in Sunset City. In addition, there were some guards and Gu Xuanwu. Protecting the women and disciples of the Li family was not a problem. Along the way, they followed Li Zongjio to see the city. It was also a great harvest for them. Even now, they were not willing to return to the sect. Since we are already out, we might as well stay for a few more days. The Li family had a good relationship with the elders of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. In Li Zongjio's opinion, it was naturally a good thing. After all, the Li family relied on the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. Although the Li family's current level could not reach the level of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect, Li Zongjio believed that it would not be long before even the Fog Snow Alchemy sect would have to look up to the Li family. Young master, you are back. The patriarch sent a message. If you come back, you should quickly go to the Yellow Plains mine to find him. Seeing Li Zongjio return, Elder Li Juyen also came forward and said, now, there were only these people left in the Li family. Most of the fighting force had been brought out. The Sun family had been beaten to a pulp. In addition, the Gu family and the Bai family were inextricably linked to the Li family. The Gu family's old man was a guest in the Li family. Even if Li Tianqing and the others were not there, nothing would happen. Moreover, it was said that the Li family and the city lord's mansion were very close now. What kind of tricks and shady dealings were involved in this was not something that outsiders would know. After the incident 2 days ago, he had already sent a message to the Li family. This kind of strange matter was believed that Li Zongjio would be able to handle it better. Okay, I will set off immediately. Li Zongjio said. Very few people knew about this trip to Northern Medicine City. There was basically no one who knew that Li Zongjio had dealt with the Northern Medicine Tower and the city lord of the Northern Medicine City. Only the elders beside him were present. They helped Li Zongjio kill the city lord. They were already on the same boat, so there was no other way. Since they were already on the boat, there was nothing to regret. They had lived an ordinary life in this world. Now that they had left nothing behind, it was time for them to roam the world. If the sect master found out that Li Zongjio had taken these elders and killed the city lord, who knew what kind of expression Chu Oren would have? Even after returning to the Li family, Li Zongjio did not rest. Taking advantage of the slightly brightening sky, he led Lin Song and the rest into the sky. Boom, boom. The white crane danced in the air and flew towards the flying Cloud City. With their speed, they would reach soaring Cloud City in less than 6 hours. However, at this moment, above the mountain, now there was a stalemate. Early in the morning, they saw the third head of the Huang family, Huang Tianjia. He led a large group of people up the mountain to force Li Tianqing to hand over their second head, Huang Pei. The people who came to ambush them last night were led by Huang Pei. Now that they had not returned for the entire night, it was obvious that the mission had failed. In their opinion, Huang Pei was not killed by the other party. They should have been captured. Did these people from the Li family really think that this was their territory? They actually dared to wantonly kidnap people from the Huang family. Li Tianqing, you are very bold. Since your Li family dares to cross the line, don't blame our Huang family for being merciless. Huang Tianjia scolded. Behind him were more than 100 experts from the Huang family. Just the elders at the Yuan master level alone had reached as many as 7. Other than that, there were also some helpers mixed in with the group. If every time they went out to fight, it would be their own family members who could not afford it. Therefore, they would usually spend money to hire some people to settle the matter. Moreover, it was only a waste of money. The lives of their own family members were more valuable, but if it was someone else's life, they would not care so much. What are you talking about, third head Huang? You lost your people, so you came to me to find them. You even said that we crossed the line. We are mining legally. What do you think? If you have any questions, you can go and ask the Su family. Li Tianqing said slowly. What he meant was that if there were any questions, then go and see what happened to the Su family. He believed that after seeing it, there would not be so many questions. Headley, let's not beat around the bush. Hand over the person today, and my Huang family will not make things difficult for you in the future. Otherwise, don't blame us for having a hard time in the future. Huang Tianzhi said. Who would believe your words? If we really handed the person over to you, you would turn hostile in the blink of an eye. We can't do anything about it, right? It's not our first day out in the world. Such a naive trick won't work on us. Third head Huang, please go back. I was on this mountain last night, but I didn't see your second head Huang. How about this? I'll ask the people in the mine to keep an eye out. If they see him, I'll call him back and ask him to go back to you. Li Tianqing said with a smile. Although he was smiling, he was secretly reminding the people around to be vigilant. Go back? Li, I brought so many people here today. You want me to go back with just one sentence? Fine, I won't force you. Did anyone not come back last night? Until now, there hasn't been any news. Huang Tianzhi said with a cold smile. Li Tianqing glanced at Huang Tianzhi. He was shocked. He knew that Huang Tianzhi was talking about Li Shuilan and Bai Luoxue. Both of them were in the city. Last night, when he sent people to protect Li Shuilan, it was already too late. He found that they had already moved. Now, Li Tianqing had asked Li Gui to bring people to search for them in the city. If necessary, he would take action. Although Li Tianqing was extremely worried about the situation of the two, he also knew that the Li family had to establish their image as they fought their way to this place. If one were to endure blindly and repeatedly make money through harmony, then it would be impossible to be looked up to and accepted by others. If one wanted to succeed, then one would have to use blood to wash the sword in one's hand. It seems that your Huang family doesn't want to live anymore. Li Tianqing's smile disappeared. Instead, a trace of ruthlessness appeared on his face. When Huang Tianzhi saw Li Tianqing's change of expression, he was shocked. What did this guy mean? Was he not afraid that they would kill the hostages? The situation was obviously under his control. Why would something like this happen? Was Li Tianqing going to take action? Immediately, Huang Tianzhi was shocked. It was obvious that they were aware of the unfriendly atmosphere that was spreading. Don't let any of these Huang family people go. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.